Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to Drishti 2021. I am Bangalore's annual flagship event organized by the PGPM program. True to its legacy, Drishti is all geared up to showcase trailblazing ideas transforming India's business landscape. We promise you to offer an immersive and extraordinary experience through insightful keynote speeches, panel discussions, workshop, and absorbing fireside chats, all spread across 25th and 26th of September, which is today and tomorrow. This year's theme is Resurgent Growth, Building Back Better. While the COVID-19 pandemic has extensively disrupting in terms of economic activity and loss of human lives across the globe, this crisis has also presented us with unique challenges to address and perhaps an opportunity to build back differently and innovatively. In India, the key to unleashing a wave of reform and embracing the innovation is disruptive transformation in 5 sunrise areas of growth, namely mobility, advanced cell chemistries, artificial intelligence, 5G generation mobile network technology, and the genomics. Over today and tomorrow, we bring together global thought leaders who will be walking us through their journey and their outlook towards economic resurgence and prosperity. From technology leaders analyzing the digital transformation to global strategists dissecting the disruption to business caused by the pandemic, to happiness evangelists talking about innovating happiness, to human resource leaders navigating us through the work from homes, to fintech, to diversity and inclusion, you name it, and we have it all. We have tried to find and invite eminent speakers from most domains of interest to the national conversation. And we vehemently hope that Drishti delights each one of you, whether you're joining us on campus or remotely across the country and worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ramya Tanuja, and I once again extend a heartfelt welcome to this Visionary Leadership and Business Summit, Drishti 2021. Can we please have the video now? As part of our tradition, we would now begin the event by lighting a virtual lamp. To inaugurate Drishti 2021, we would like to welcome Honorable Director and the Professor of Strategy at Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, Professor Rishikesha Krishnan. A graduate of IIT Kanpur, Stanford University, and IIM Ahmedabad, Professor Krishnan's main area of interest are strategy and innovation. He has been listed in the Thinkers 50 India list of most influential management thinkers from India. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Professor Rishikesha Krishnan.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to this event. Let me at the outset congratulate the PGP-EM participants, particularly the organizing team, for putting together this event over today and tomorrow. It was good to listen to your explanation of the theme and the very relevant questions you're going to be asking in all the sessions. I also had a look at your list of speakers, and certainly it's a very impressive list covering different geographies, different topics, drawing on a wide range of expertise. So I think looks to be all set to be a wonderful and very educative event. PGP-EM is one of our very special programs. This is a program where we get to work closely with some of the top executives in different industries here in Bangalore and help them meet some of their educational goals, while at the same time, the institute also gets a chance to learn from their experience. This program has had earlier avatars, but one thing that has been consistent throughout is the strong link to the world of practice, the strong link to practicing managers here in Bangalore and sometimes from other cities as well. And it's been a real privilege to contribute to the advancement of both the individuals' careers as well as the fortunes of the companies they all work with. So I am particularly happy that PGP-EM is organizing this event titled Drishti. And all these events where industry speakers come in wonderfully complement what we do in the classroom sessions at IIM Bangalore, where the students obviously get a whole lot of inputs on the theory and best practices and so on. But there's always a special charm in listening to people from industry who are so-called at the cutting edge of what's happening, and bring in some of the latest phenomena and the latest learnings to all the participants in the program. So I'm really delighted to see this excellent program which has evolved. Let me also just spend a couple of minutes, talking about some of the important skills which I think will be important for the kind of resurgence that was talked about in the introduction. Clearly, if we are going to take advantage of the uptick which is likely to happen once COVID starts receding, or if the current trend continues, there are a few things which are going to be important. One is, of course, the whole practice of entrepreneurial thought and risk-taking, because a lot of opportunities are going to come up, but they're also going to be couched in risks and uncertainties, and it's going to be require really strong-willed managers who can manage the risks involved. So I think that's going to be one very important skill. Another important skill is going to be collaboration. We can see almost throughout the world, even during the pandemic, and I'm sure that will be true after the pandemic as well, that working with other organizations is going to be critical to success. No organization can have all the knowledge it requires within its boundaries, and therefore collaborating with others is crucial. We've seen that in the product arena with P&G. We've seen that at the strategic arena with companies like Ford. But particularly in the digital and networking era, being willing to collaborate with other companies at the strategic level is extremely important. So I think the second element I would underline is collaboration. However, there will also be ups and downs. So the ability to read weak signals early and to take necessary action is going to be another important characteristic. I already mentioned that you'll need to take risks, but you'll also need to manage those risks. So good, effective risk management practices will have to be a part of the strategies of all organizations. So these are just 3 or 4 skills or 3 or 4 capabilities which I think managers will need to weather all the vicissitudes in the days ahead. So I hope all of you in the PGP-EM program will use this opportunity of Drishti to learn from all the industry speakers and also see how what they say complements what you have learned from all our faculty in the various courses that you have taken during the program. So once again, let me congratulate PGP-EM and the folks behind Drishti, and wish you all the best, wish you a wonderful event, and I'm sure lots of fun and learning in the days ahead. Thank you and best wishes.
Thank you, Professor. Truly mentioned having one foot in academics and one at work is what keeps us going, and managing different stakeholders has never been more fulfilling. So we can't thank you, the chairperson, and all the leaders of PGPM enough for this opportunity. Now is the time. It's my immense honor and privilege in introducing our chief guest for Drishti 2021, Mr. Vishal Bali, a stalwart in building and leading global healthcare delivery organizations. Vishal brings with him a unique and diverse business experience of managing $1 billion P&L of an integrated healthcare delivery organization comprising a spectrum of healthcare verticals, including hospitals, diagnostics, primary care, and daycare specialty clinics networks, which networks across 12 countries in Asia Pacific. Let's have a sneak peek into his 28 years of experience. Prior to his current assignment, Vishal was the Group CEO for Fortis Healthcare Limited, India's second largest healthcare delivery enterprise with a network of 68 hospitals and a pan-India pathology diagnostics chain. One of his key contributions in the Indian healthcare ecosystem includes spearheading the growth and transformation of Wockhardt hospitals from a single hospital to one of the largest pan-India specialist hospital chains as its CEO and managing director. His entrepreneurial journey with Medwell Ventures has also led to building a leading home healthcare company in India. Vishal completed his bachelor's in science, post-graduation in business, and an advanced program in hospital management from Harvard Medical Boston. He sits on the board of leading healthcare organizations and has been an invited member of the Strategic Initiatives Group of Joint Commission International US. He has also been a past member of the Global Agenda Healthcare Council of World Economic Forum. Vishal is currently the Executive Chairman of Asia Healthcare Holdings and a Senior Advisor at TPG Growth. With this, I request our Honorable Chairperson of PGPEM, Professor Gopal Mahapatra, to please invite him onto our virtual stage. Ladies and gentlemen, for Gopalan sir.
Good evening, all of you. I first of all want to thank Professor Rishi. He had a very hectic schedule. Morning, he taught to a large audience of leaders. Evening, I had programs, but I think thank you, sir, for being there to inaugurate this very important program. We did have a break last couple of years. This batch is trying to redo that. Thank you very much. And friends, it's a privilege and honor to invite Mr. Vishal Bali. And I must tell a few words. I was a consultant about 20 years back, and Vishal may or may not remember correctly. I did an assignment for him when he was CEO of Okat Hospitals. That was an HRD, and that is that. Then I did another assignment. We stayed in the same guest house opposite Amitabh Bachchan's house. I recently interviewed him with two of our colleague researchers on the current subject, which is going to say. But before I invite Mr. Vishal, I just want to bring all of you who are listening to this inaugural address by Mr. Vishal. Professor Rishi talked about this flagship program. This started 2 decades back. We just did an action research when I took over a few years back, and the research has shared 3-4 important things. Some of you want to nominate yourself. Some of you want to nominate your cousins, nephews, younger brothers, sisters. One major benefit they found, the growth within and outside the organization has been phenomenal. Second, very high return on investment. More important, their identity has shifted after graduating and working further in the organization. Third part, what they said is the networking, though they didn't intend it as an intended outcome, it has been the biggest advantage for the course they have undertaken. So with this background, when they do Drishti as an event, as Professor Rishi said, we do a lot of coverage to the graduate students, the working professionals. They practice that, they learn from the academicians here, and here is an opportunity to integrate with some of the best practices that this team has done. So I'll now, the proposal is to invite Mr. Vishal Wali, our chief guest, honorable chief guest for this session. And towards the end, I'll again invite Vishal and we'll have a chat with him regarding a few important questions that's there, time permitting. So good evening, all of you, and let's welcome Mr. Vishal Wali, the erudite leader and dynamic leader, to give the inaugural address after the director. Thank you, and over to Mr. Vishal.
Thank you, Professor Krishnan, and thank you, Professor Gopal, for this invite, and to all the very budding students here and those who have come from the industry to do the PGP program. A very good afternoon, good evening. When the team actually asked me to speak at this forum, obviously there were a couple of thoughts going on in my head in terms of how do we really assess and how do we move forward from where COVID has left us. Across all industries, across the global economy, across the stage of what the world of business looks like today than what it was looking about 2 years back. And a couple of things really span out, right? One of the first ones that we should all be cognizant of is 2021 is going to be the year of great transition. Given the fact that we now seem to be far more confident of having dealt with the COVID situation, and the fact that the world after its vaccination drive seems to be more or less now reconciled to the fact that there may be a very muted third wave, which effectively means that we are now paring ourselves towards normalcy. Obviously, everybody has been talking about the new normal and what does it really mean. I think from the perspective of leadership, a lot has changed over the last 2 or 3 years. But before I come to that topic, let me talk a bit about in terms of how the world is perceiving itself and how different areas of running businesses are actually thinking in terms of what's going to change. So let's start with the first one. There is a different thought process which is going on within the world amongst countries which are probably aging countries and countries which are young in terms of how they think about resurgent growth. So when you look back and look at countries like look at countries like France, Italy, Japan, which fall under the bucket of obviously the most of the European Union falls under the bucket of a more aged country in terms by age and by demographics, but their thought process around resurgence is a lot more to do in terms of how they are going to keep their populations healthy, how they are going to keep their environments continuing to chug along with a certain degree of resilience, At the same time, they're not really wanting themselves to get into supernominal growth from where they left behind, because preservation is the key to where they belong today. And obviously, we all know what happened in Italy, where millions of people actually died because of COVID. And so therefore, resilience to them fundamentally right now means continuity of what is important to them as a country, and that is just predominantly continuing to be safe. On the other hand, when you look at countries like India, China, Indonesia, the emerging world is thinking about how they can now capture a very different part of the world as it changes. Obviously, a large part of the economic growth engine of the world revolves around the emerging economies, but how quickly these emerging economies will come back to capture a portion of the world economy and a portion of the world's growth is where these countries are thinking. I'm sure all of you are aware of how the world of supply chain and the way that the world is now thinking of supply chain has actually changed a lot. So, in recent times, you hear a lot more of what Vietnam is doing in the world of electronics, consumer electronics, and others. You hear of a lot more what Bangladesh is doing in terms of apparel export, and what is not happening in China is now getting rooted through the Bangladesh economy. And so therefore, there is a big call in terms of what would really change. And in the world of supply chain today, everybody's thinking is that supply chain of close to about $4.5 trillion around the world could get shifted from various countries. And that's basically because when COVID first hit, one of the biggest issues that the world faced was around supply chain. And concentrated supply chain in one country of the world actually became one of the biggest issues as the world went into self-preservation mode. And so I think that's a big one in terms of how the supply chain of the world is going to get reconstituted. And I think that will also give rise to very different businesses in different parts of the world, and particularly in the emerging economies. I think the next big one, according to me, which, we have all been talking about digitization for a long period of time. We have all been talking about how digital enablement is going to change the world. We have been talking about how cloud brings with it speed of execution and speed of change. Never before has technology been appreciated more and its impact more intricate in the way that the world runs and world behaves than what it is today. Whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in the finance world, whether it is in the FMCG world, in whichever world we may talk about, or in the world of economics of countries and economies, and in the world of just business, technology has now sought its place as a front bench in terms of how companies are going to survive and grow, and more importantly, how countries are going to survive and grow. We've seen a big change of that in healthcare and the way that the world is consuming healthcare services, which is unprecedented. It is very heartening to see when patients today turn back and say that they are happy to meet their doctors online and not just in the physical world. And that's one of the biggest changes that has come about. And we will see more and more of that digitization impact, not just healthcare services, but the way that the world consumes many other services. I think the next one, which is more important from the world's perspective, and again, a function of where technology has actually created an absolutely new avenue, is the way that people work. And what started as a very defensive mechanism of people working from home is actually going to become very real as the world takes its functioning back in 2021. An expectation is that more than 20% of the world's global workforce, particularly in areas of finance, information technology, IT-enabled services, and in many other functions, human resources, many of these functions, people are very confident that they can actually be as productive from home as they were in their offices. what a global change this will bring about in the way that we look at the world of human resources, in the way that we actually look at the world of leadership. Leading over people who are in your physical surroundings are very different than leading over people who are actually dissipated all around the world. And that brings its own challenges for leadership, but at the same time, it brings its own benefits in the way that companies see them running themselves. If you look at the results of most of the Fortune 500 companies, and particularly of the IT companies over the last 2 or 3 quarters, they have actually never had it as good as they're having it right now. And the reason for that fundamentally is they have a massively productive workforce today, which is all working from home. Their cost of running businesses has gone down dramatically, and they basically believe that this is going to be a very real phenomena for them as their people even come back to offices. I was talking to one of the very high-profile IT companies, which does global work, one of the top 3 companies in the world, and they actually have onboarded 70,000 people online over the last 1.5 years, which effectively means they've lost 70,000 people, they've onboarded 70,000 people, and they have never met them physically at all. Their laptops have been delivered to them at their homes. So one company takes its laptop away, another one comes and gives it to you. And what a different world are we all therefore living in? And therefore, the concept of leadership in this world is going to be very, very challenging. I think the next one, which again is important, is the way that we are going to see a revolution in the pharmaceutical and the biopharmaceutical world. The very fact that the COVID vaccines were brought in front of us and given to the world in a very short period of time, using the new technology of mRNA, basically demonstrates that we are going to live in a very different biopharmaceutical world. And that effectively means that innovation in medical technology and innovation in healthcare and innovation in the way that the pharma world works is going to be superly disruptive. And we have to get ready for that world, whether it is in the world of wellness, fitness, curative medicine. The world of healthcare and the world of people is changing forever. And that also shows that there are going to be multiple new opportunities which are going to open up to leaders around the world in these industries as they transform and disrupt the way that they have been functioning. One of the areas that has been super exciting over the last, and obviously the Indian Sensex is a great reflection of that, is the liquidity that sits in the world. It is both a power and a problem. Power from the perspective of that the amount of liquidity that has got created in the world on the back of COVID and also the stimulus packages that the world has given, whether it is the United States, it is Europe, many other countries around the world. There is a tremendous amount of capital that has actually been raised in the form of stimulus, which almost points to about $10 trillion in the G20 countries. $10 trillion of stimulus has been created by G20 to support their countries and to, and obviously support their own businesses just to be stable. This $20 trillion of liquidity is actually now moving around the world and creating a very different path for growth to happen. And much of it is actually going into the world of business. So stimulus, which was actually created to keep people healthy, just give me a second, please. So that just goes to show that, in the world that we are actually living in is a world that can be very transformative. It can also be, and this stimulus that we are currently sitting on is actually on the back of very low interest rates world over. When interest rates harden up, and in fact, some of the interest rates are almost going towards negative, which effectively means that the financial situation of the world is very, very different. While it looks great, it could be fragile in more ways than one. Because when interest rates harden up around the world, and all of you who are students of finance will know that as soon as interest rates harden up across the world, we are going to see a big change in the way that the capital moves all over the world. So interesting times ahead, both for growth, for resilience, at the same time to create stability around the world with capital. The next one, which is also equally important, is the private equity world and the venture capital world, which all of you are very much aware of, has raised close to almost about $1.5 trillion to be invested behind companies all over the world. Now, as we call it in the financial world, this is the so-called dry powder that has to go and back companies as they come back and as they sort of become resilient, and at the same time to power the entire startup ecosystem around the world. At the same time, growth capital for companies which have got advanced and which have actually become mature. So there is a lot of capital that is around the world in the post-COVID era, which effectively means that companies have a great opportunity, which effectively means that countries like India and countries, like China and some of the others, which have a very different appetite for future growth. And I am more and more passionate about what happens in India and in the world of the business. We are going to see a phenomenal opportunity for Indian companies to be powered by this level of capital which is being raised around the world. And you can see the way it is coming. It is coming at a very quick pace. It is coming at a very, very fast pace to be deployed and to be very, very quickly deployed, because everybody knows that this is something which the window of this is about 12 to 18 months. So at a macro level, the world looks different. At a managerial level, the world is beginning to look more and more complicated. What does it mean for leadership? And what does it mean for people like us who are actually, and like all of you, who are going to go back into the world of business and lead your teams, lead your businesses, lead different environments as the environment changes around us? I think the number one task for leadership in the changing horizon, and which we have all learned in a very quick time, is speed matters. Execution matters. Change with agility matters. Because if we had many of the companies that we see, and you will also see, and I'm sure that you are studying many of them, companies that transformed themselves quickly during the COVID situation of 2021 have done very well for themselves, while there are n number of companies which have also died during the same time. That effectively means that leadership had a big role to play both in survival, and leadership had a big role to play for not supporting the companies to continue their mode of survival. So speed of execution and change, in my mind, as leaders, has come at the forefront. Companies have no opportunity not to be agile. Leaders have no opportunity to not be agile. Managers have no opportunity to be not agile and to not quickly learn what they need to do in order to implement a change. The second most important thing for me is, and Professor Krishnan talked about it, in terms of collaboration. Leadership in this era, which is with workforce, which is distributed across nations, across countries, within countries, across states and cities, will mean collaboration using technology. Collaboration not just with the world of different companies, but collaboration within the companies, and leadership, which will drive collaboration, teamwork, using technology as a big mode of that change. I think we have a great opportunity over here, which we, in the world of human resources, have probably not used enough. So if you talk to most of the HR leaders today, they are now beginning to grapple with the fact that it is no more about payroll management, and it is no more about change management. It is no more about how to keep the workforce going using the same old human resource management systems, but it is a very different world where you connect with people and create culture online. Creating culture online and creating culture offline are two very different challenges in front of human resource management. So I think that's something that we have to be super cognizant about. I think that Another one, which in my mind, from a leadership perspective, which is very critical, is that how do you actually gauge demand? And this you will hear from leader after leaders from different industries, not just from the lens of healthcare, but whether it is the FMCG world, whether it is the automobile world, the management and thought process around ensuring demand and creating demand and anticipating consumer demand has actually shifted forever. Because there is, the science of demand estimation, which all of us have learned in business school, was very prevalent all along. Suddenly, as the world has shifted from physical to online, demand estimation has really gone very much haywire in terms of its style of estimation. So I think we're going to be facing a lot more disruption in the way that the customer engages with us, in the way that the customer engages with any product or services company. And more importantly, the way that companies foresee their own demand. Last but not the least, I think from a leadership perspective, what is very important is leaders have to focus a lot more on purpose and building purpose, because I think the world has seen the ramifications of COVID from different angles. People have seen the ramification of COVID for what we have done to the world as we have brought about our own issues, climate change, because when people have not been living healthier lives or leading healthier lives in the way that the environment in which they function, they have been actually more impacted by COVID than the ones who were actually living better quality of lives in better environments. So therefore, suddenly we have climate change in the front conversation. We have sustainability in the front conversation. We're talking about suddenly the leadership thought process is not about managing their own companies, but about managing the sustainability of the world too. Because COVID has actually demonstrated that until and unless collective leadership thinks about not just their own countries, but in the world of globalization, where globalization has impacted commerce and has impacted growth and has impacted organizations, we have all benefited from a global economy and from a very open market global economy. We have also seen the impact of globalization in the way that viruses travel around the world. So just the same way as capital travels around the world, disease is traveling faster than the sound of speed, around the world. And I think therefore it is very, very important that the way that you now engage with the world, you've got to put the focus of purpose. And what is it that we can do for our own organizations to remain healthy, for our environments to remain healthy, for self-preservation, self-conservation, but more importantly, how do we really create a very powerful opportunity, even in the countries where we live, so that we can create a much more sustainable environment. So this, in my mind, is a little bit of a synopsis of the way that I believe that the world is going to be, and how 2021 is actually going to be a year of great transition for all of us.
I was seeing your time management as usual. You manage it very well. So I think a couple of points that you built, I think as Professor Rishi said, we do cover it academically, but when it comes from a leader like you, like focused collaboration, breaking boundaries. I just remembered the last year batch, which is graduating, Umesh and the team which is doing this, and even the first year batch, in the people management, they're all concerned. How do we motivate people? How do you work virtually? So coming from me, from academics is different from coming from you, how they have to lead as they enter the field. Thank you. So I have 3 questions and we'll end in time so that the other speaker goes in. First question, I'll go into your tough, earlier tough. There are 2 questions from health, and third, I'll ask for the third audience question. First, finally, time permitting, I'll have a personal question. How do you visualize, this is from your industry, I must acknowledge that quite a large number of healthcare professionals are there. Thank you very much for joining our Drishti. It's a great acknowledgement of your presence. Also means listening to Vishal, your participation, you are going to add more value to the country and the world. Thank you very much. The first question, Vishal, is how will the healthcare industry change specifically in the next decade? What is your anticipation? What is your perspective?
So, excellent question, Professor Gopal. I think as we have seen, and I spoke about it a bit, but I think the biggest impact that healthcare has faced over the last 2 years is the rise of digitization in healthcare. For a very long period of time, healthcare is an industry which does not disrupt itself. It has not disrupted itself. Our concept of healthcare has traditionally been build big hospitals, big beds, because there is a supply chain, supply demand curve, which is totally skewed on the demand side, and there were not enough beds and doctors and nurses. And so we have lived in a very supply constrained world of healthcare. And the position that all of us took was build more capacity of physical infrastructure. I think what we have got to understand, and which is going to become more and more dominant, is that the consumer has actually shifted using digital technologies, even in healthcare, and is now engaging with their providers, whether it is hospitals or doctors, online. And which means that this is just the beginning of digitization of healthcare. And it is not just going to be around the fact that how you do teleconsultation and things like that, but I think the entire chain of healthcare activities, we will see a massive digital push, which effectively means that all of us who are in the world of healthcare have to rethink technology, have to rethink service, have to rethink remote understanding, have to rethink how hospitals and consumers have to get constantly connected, using a very different technological route. So in my mind, this is truly disruptive. And it is not going to be for the next 2 or 3 years. I think this is going to be a change which is there forever to now run.
I think, Vishal, that's called anticipation. You not only talk anticipation, the next question was somewhere very closer to you started answering. How will the technology play a role in personalized healthcare delivery? The other day when we were interviewing you, you did mention, now there's, again, I understand it's from healthcare industry. The question is, how will technology play a role in personalized healthcare industry? Your perspective.
So, Professor Gopal, if you take a look at it, and if you take a look at all the big tech enterprises of the world, whether it is Amazon, it is Apple, Microsoft, each one of them, if anybody goes in today and begins to think on what are they betting of the future and where are they basically putting their dollars and their research dollars, it's all going in personalized health. We are all wearing Apple Watches, and what are we seeing on those Apple Watches? We are monitoring our health, we are monitoring our number of steps, we are monitoring the number of calories we are burning, we are monitoring how many steps we are taking a day, how are we doing when we are climbing, and how is our heart reacting. So you just look at the way that the world of technology is changing around us because we are wearing it on our wrist. And that's going to accelerate even further. So when we talk about data management today, and particularly on the health front, data is going to be king in terms of creation of new technologies and also in the way that the world of therapeutics comes about. And data is going to be the one which will drive a lot of this. So I see, personalization of healthcare being rooted, deep rooted by all the technology leaders in the products and services that they are creating, and which is going to then be truly transformative in the way that all of us also live.
Thank you. Excellent articulation. I think I'll go to one broad question and then I'll come back to a question which is of relevance to our organizers, both the first year and final year. What are some of the broad common steps and areas which every business should focus to deliver better outcomes and avoid spillover from the pandemic? You already mentioned about the byproducts there, but I think keeping all the business stakeholders, you have any insight, you have any suggestions? This is for larger business, yeah.
So, and Professor Gopal, we actually spoke about it a bit. The world of business was largely driven through P&L management. And for a very long period of time, and obviously so, we lost focus on the balance sheet because in the run for growth, we all built heavier balance sheets as long as our P&Ls were looking good. suddenly you realize in the world that we were in 2 years back or a year and a half back, that liquidity evaporated from the world. While it has come back in the world in a very big way, it just evaporated for a brief period of time, for 2 or 3 quarters, which impacted enterprises tremendously. Cash flows just disappeared. So therefore, I think the resilience and more importantly, stability and being very conscious around the capital utilization of enterprises and how it is going to continue to create more sustainable organization is going to be very critical. As you know that I come from the world of healthcare, but I also work in a private equity enterprise. So I see both the worlds very, very closely. And this I'm seeing in sector after sector, not just in healthcare, but I'm seeing it in the FMCG world. You see what has happened to the world of automation, automobiles. The companies are disappearing. And the reason why they are disappearing was because they were sitting on such high inventories. They thought that the world is just going to keep on consuming more and more cars. And there's a big change which is beginning to happen there, particularly with the onset of electric vehicles. That industry is getting hugely disrupted. Now, all the capital that has gone behind that industry in the last couple of years in creating supply chain or in creating production capacity for regular cars is going to get decimated over the next 2 or 3 years. What a change. So I think what is very important for leaders and for our young managers and everybody who's here, learning the art of business, is that we are going to live in a very, very different world of business in the next couple of years, which will bring about complexity. It will also bring about massive change. It will bring about an opportunity for us to be very transformative in our thought. And never before that opportunity has been there. So I think we should use the COVID situation as much to be transformative as it is at a personal level to remain healthy and in good shape.
Thank you. I think I told you your anticipation is very good. I had a personal question. This question before I close the session, I wanted to request one. See, these young managers, on an average, we have 10 to 12 years of experience for this graduating batch. Also, the younger batch is no less. Of course, there is larger audience. Vishal, I have seen you early years. I have seen you 10 years back addressing to global team. I have seen you recently. You have reinvented. You have been a resilient leader, if not an agile leader, multiple ways. What will you tell my graduating batch now and the younger batch, which is almost formative to graduate? How do you think they'll reinvent, rediscover themselves to be more productive? Of course, we'll provide the conceptual input. Is there any leadership, personal agenda you want them to add on as they pick up the concepts and learnings here? In a few tips, they more workable. Now, you said vision into action. What is your idea of vision into action for these young MBAs?
I think, Professor Gopal, and also, the book that I requested from you, right? Think Again. I think learning and unlearning is going to be much faster than ever before. And to this batch and to the batches that will come after them, and also, they are inheriting a very different world, and they're going to participate and become managers in a very, very different world than the one that we all grew up in and grew up in our careers and in our, across various industries. I think one which is very important and which I spoke about is that the speed of thinking and speed of execution and speed of change in this generation. Obviously, this generation has lived their digital life, right? They are all super smart and super quick on their phones. I think they must start thinking that when they go back into the business world and then they go back into their career, things around them will also keep changing like that. It is the versions of their phones today. It is the versions of the technologies that they live with. It's the social media life that they live. Businesses are going to go through the same kind of constant change. So until and unless you are learning continuously, until and unless you are learning literally, it's like changing the wheels of a car while the car is in motion, that is going to become super critical. And experiences will teach us, and because this generation will go through experiences of a very different kind. As I said, that if I'm going to live my life where 30% of my time I spend in an office and 70% of my time I'm going to sit at home and work remotely from home, how do I connect with my larger team members, right? If I'm going to be connecting with my larger team members remotely, I have no physical way of actually seeing them in the eye and living a life collaboratively. It's a very different world of engagement. So I think more and more that I think about this generation of youngsters who are already potential managers and are going to take up far greater responsibilities of the future, the companies that they will run and the companies that they will become part of, they have a lot to contribute with their disruptive thought processes, because they are used to that a lot more than many of us. So they can be super supportive, they can be super contributive. At the same time, if they don't do it, then they will also get washed away very, very quickly. So learning and constant learning.
Yeah, I think learning agility, you told about learning agility. We do keep highlighting that there. You do talk about strategy and execution. The word is strategic execution. Third thing, you talked about collaboration. I think Martin Hansen, that book is, now you're talking about focused collaboration all over the world. That's excellent. Last question, 1 minute only. You showed some amount of positivity. I demonstrated positivity. You can tell how much positive mindset. You said wellness, mindfulness, all that, those words you used in the talk. Would you like to talk a minute about the relevance, more so for the young leaders who are coming up, what it is and why it is more relevant today, in case you want to say that?
No, absolutely, Professor Gopal. I think never before, and and frankly, I've personally gone through this phenomena over the last 16, 18 months now. And the work-life balance, while we all spoke about it, is important, and it is important to continue to create a better balance in your life and a better personality. But I think what is equally important is fitness, wellness, stable mindset also makes you so much more productive at work. One can continue to work till 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, and fatigue sets in and you are completely unproductive for another 5 or 6 days. But if you are giving your mind, if you are giving your physical body enough and more of caring, whether it is getting adequate sleep, whether it is having digital detoxification, whether it is playing a sport, whether it is just basically unwinding with yourself and giving time to yourself. Because in the social world, we give time not to ourselves, but our engagement with everybody else. Everybody believes that if you go out with friends and and have a good time, that is a good unwind. It is not. The time that you give to yourself as an individual and unwind with yourself is the time that you actually become more and more conscious about what is your own personal need. And that personal need is beyond money. That personal need is more mental stability and mental, I think mental alignment, which I think also is going to be so important as we live a little bit more isolated life in the work of remote work, in the world of remote work. So give time to yourself, give time to your own understanding, give time to your mental and physical fitness, eat right, and be healthy. And COVID has shown that those who practiced all of this actually did very well for themselves.
Thank you, Vishal. I think there couldn't have been a better way to end. You started at a macro global environment, what is happening around, came to business directions, positivity in spite of the pandemic, and you did sensitize all of us the relevance of leading change, driving change, strategic execution, and not last but not the least, not to forget self, being oneself, maintaining oneself and going ahead. We are grateful to you indeed, and I'll hand over to Ramya. But I just want to tell you, thank you very much for setting the tone. Director set a larger context you built on and took it to the next direction. And thanks for accommodating and rescheduling your time to help us with this inaugural address. Thank you very much. We are really grateful to you. Over to you, Ramya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gopal. Always a pleasure to interact with you. Thank you, Professor Krishnan.
We would once again like to thank our Honorable Director and the Chairperson of PGPEM, Professor Gopal Mahapadra, for their kind support throughout. And what a pleasure it's been listening to Mr. Vishal Bali speaking. Thank you so much for your time and your words. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to mention and recognize 3 key players for Drishti 2021. Any guesses? Well, yes, none other than the key sponsors. Amazon Payments, eSamuday, Media Partners, ET Insights, thank you so much for believing in us and sponsoring Drishti 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much. We come to an end for the inauguration, and the next sessions will start from 6:30 p.m. So we have a break of 30 minutes. People who are willing to ask questions, please drop your questions and the queries in the chat box. We will be monitoring them. And yes, see you all at 6:30 p.m. Thank you. We have also an interesting campus tour virtually for people who want to see the flora and fauna of IMB campus. So yes, if you are interested, please stay back and enjoy the show. Thank you.
As a recruiter, it's always a pressure to go back in the Institute of Management because the effect is very professional. The way they do the selection process is very professional. And it's also proud to say that many of the stalwart from the Institute of Management, Bangalore, has decorated pivotal role in Singaporean success in India.
IMB's vision is to be a global renowned academic institution, fostering excellence in business management and entrepreneurship for business, government and society.
Keeping with this vision, since its inception in 1973, IIMB has distinguished itself by its excellent academic programs, executive education, research across management and related disciplines, support for entrepreneurs, and its contribution to public policy.
We have very strong academic programs. We have some of the best research-oriented faculty in the country. They publish in some of the best academic journals in the world. Fortunately, IIM Bangalore has a very strong record in placement because of the excellence of our MBA program and other degree programs, and of course the quality of our students.
Career Development Services Office works with the students from the day they join the institute till the day they graduate by assisting them to choose the right career path. More than 150 companies visit IIM Bangalore to meet their talent needs every year. Over the years, IIM Bangalore has become the preferred destination for many recruiters. IIM Bangalore follows a highly transparent placement process which is appreciated by both recruiters and students.
IIM Bangalore completely justifies its motto, Tejasvi Navadidamastu, which means let our study be enlightening. It imparts this education through methods like case-based pedagogy and lecture-based sessions, which helps students gain deeper understanding of the subject.
Last year, I came here with so many dreams in my eyes. And trust me, IIM Bangalore has offered me far and beyond what I have imagined.
IIM Bangalore has taught me two very important things. The first is balance. I think as we go through our professional careers, our personal lives, the most important thing is balance. And I think the kind of education I got here among the various subjects, the diverse tutors, the kind of experiences I had, I think that was one of the biggest learnings. And I think the second thing is when you're put in a new environment and how do you deal with adversity, I think the grit and the tenacity that is required to sustain and continuously do well and endeavor to succeed, I think that's a very important attribute that this institute has taught me.
Our incubator, run under the aegis of N.S. Raghavan Center for Entrepreneurial Learning, NSRCEL, has a unique positioning in helping hundreds of qualified individuals start their first venture. We are the national leader in massive open online courses, with more than 40 MOOCs courses in management offered on the edX, Swayam, and IIMBX platforms.
At IIM Bangalore, our key strength undoubtedly is our faculty body, who are committed to bringing the most recent advances in management education into our classrooms. cases written by IMB faculty are widely popular all over the world. IMB has a rich tradition and culture of research and scholarship. Many of our faculty members regularly publish in the leading academic journals in management education. Our endeavor has always been to keep our research rigorous, but also to keep it impactful. Right? And so it is in this regard that we have set up several centers of excellence. And these centers of excellence cover several areas ranging from entrepreneurship to risk in financial markets, supply chain management, public policy. Essentially what these centers do is they sort of act as a bridge between the IMB faculty as well as industry and government. This way our faculty are clued in to the various challenges faced by both industry and government, and it enables them to engage productively with the different sectors of the economy. In fact, many of our faculty members regularly feature on boards of prestigious companies as well as important government committees.
At IIMB, we have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion that aims to make our institute more diverse and more inclusive. For us, diversity means that we admit students and hire faculty and staff from as many different backgrounds as possible. Inclusiveness is about humility and respect. It means that we show respect to all individuals, regardless of their background. For students with disabilities, we try to provide necessary support so that they can perform to the best of their abilities.
Trust me, this institute amazed me in every bit of sense. I had issues walking up to the class and the rigorous course outline that is here. I was in doubt like if I'll be able to compete with the brightest student in the country out here. At that point, ODS came into picture, who helped me in every bit of sense.
I must say that IIM Bangalore has one of the strongest disabled training programs in the country, and definitely unparalleled.
It is our belief, and we will continue to pursue that, and that is to make IIM Bangalore iconic because of the quality of its students, because of the quality of its teaching, because of the quality of its research, and more importantly, because of the quality of the values that it instills in people who pass through IIM Bangalore. We're not just talking about academic excellence. We're also talking about building people of character, people who operate with the best work ethic.
Also were allotted are hostel rooms. This was the place where I spent 2 years of my MBA degree, and I loved this room. These were the books that we got.
Welcome again to Drishti 2021. I am Bangalore's Visionary Leadership and Business Summit organized by the PGPM program. We will now be moving on to the next keynote speech. Data, we all must agree, has a significant impact on the collective knowledge of the world. Apart from our frontline warriors during the pandemic, the second most powerful ally in the fight to manage the way back from COVID-19 has been data itself. That said, this is not the first time data is being analyzed and turned into useful insights. Historically, data has been a powerful tool and was shared in various formats and modes via different channels. Technology today is helping us to exploit this widely untapped ally of ours in a cost-effective and efficient way like never before. It now has the capacity to transform every industry in different ways. A report from McKinsey Global Institute estimates that big data could generate an additional $3 trillion value every year in just 7 industries. As with any resource, the main constraint will be the ability to conceive and manifest new uses for this resource and build viable business models to deliver products and services that matter to consumers. To help us understand this further, we have with us our keynote speaker, Ms. Chitra Hota, MD and Head, Data Technology and Architecture, Oaktree Capital Management. She'll be sharing her thoughts and insights on building back better through data and analytics. Her primary responsibilities at Oaktree include transforming and building Oaktree's data platforms to enable reporting and analytics at scale. Prior to joining Oaktree, Chitra was a CTO, Asset and Wealth Management, JP Morgan & Chase. She has held several technology and leadership roles in global markets, investment banking, and wealth management during her career. Chitra did her graduation in electrical and electronics engineering from the Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani. Chitra also has entrepreneurial experience successfully running her own company to provide product and consulting services to financial services clients. Ms. Chitra is passionate about providing mentorship and training to young adults from underserved communities to pursue technology careers. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Mamta Anurag, along with Abhishek Sarkar, the moderator of this session, cordially invite Ms. Chitra Hota to deliver the keynote speech this evening.
Thank you, Mamta, and thank you, Abhishek. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak at this event on such an important topic: resurgent growth after a period of lockdown and devastation. Today, I'm going to talk about the power of data to foster innovative growth and make the world a better place. Next slide, please. Technological and behavioral changes brought about by COVID and global climate change presents a huge opportunity for growth. Competitive advantages shift as business models adapt to new market realities. Core capabilities that made an organization distinctive may suddenly appear less differentiating. While the rise of digital has been mounting similar pressures for more than a decade, the current crisis around the globe has significantly accelerated its disruptive force. Data has become the differentiator for building back better. Having the ability to rapidly synthesize the many data signals coming into an organization, recognize the new patterns of customer behavior, gives the company a head start in the innovation race. Accelerating and scaling were key to survival during COVID. Once we pivoted to remote work, ensuring bandwidth, system stability, and large-scale digital access to services across every domain was key. Cybersecurity and fraud monitoring were other aspects that had to scale with increased digital presence. Central to this approach of building back better is the focus on the better. Building back with a sense of global well-being, sustainability, and inclusiveness. Data has exposed the precariousness of long and complex global value chains, countries struggling to acquire medical and other strategic supplies, social inequalities among countries and within the same country have been exposed. Data can improve resilient and diverse workforce, reduce emissions, reduce climate impacts, slow down biodiversity, and increase the circularity of supply chains in a connected global economy, and thereby helping with the alignment of our long-term goals. Next slide, please. There's no place like home. This is true since the COVID onset, with lockdown measures and physical distancing guidelines resulting in entire populations from countries and around the world spending more time at home and subsequently more money online. The convergence has been dubbed by some as the homebody economy. Seeking inspiration and stimulation, individuals have been looking for ways to break the day-to-day monotony while staying safe and closer to home. We have all migrated to a homebody economy. We either work more from home or change jobs like I did, or went back to school like most of you. A recent study by McKinsey showed that 32% of Americans had a work-study change during COVID, and 31% of Indians also had a work-study change during the same period. Zoom has enabled remote work and remote learning for families. More families are investing in internet bandwidth, better computers, and enrolling in remote learning for themselves and their children. By August 30th, 2021, Zoom had posted its first $1 billion revenue for the quarter. Remote learning, which was earlier trending only in higher education, is now gaining traction in schools. I have had my children attending college and middle school remotely last year and the half of this year, with great success for my college student and a limited disaster with my middle schooler, who just could not focus for 8 hours on academics. I do wonder, though, how they focus for 10 hours on video games like Fortnite and Minecraft. Both my children send me articles on how video games can change the physical brain structure, much like exercise or playing the piano. The jury is still out on that. But I'm sure this resonates with all of you that have school-age children. With the rise in digitization, companies are undertaking ambitious plans to upskill their workers using e-learning tools. Pluralsight, Coursera, O'Reilly Books are some of the platforms that have grown exponentially during the pandemic. Pluralsight's 2020 billings from customer revenues have gone to $380.8 million, with an increase of 15% year over year. In December 2020, Vista Equity Partners acquired Pluralsight in a $3.5 billion deal that highlights the continuing appeal of the enterprise e-learning education software sector to private equity firms. This pandemic has also given rise to the home chef. In my family, my 13-year-old and I have created numerous recipes fusing together Indian and Western cuisines. Chicken tikka pizza, tikka tacos, paneer paninis, to name a few. We've all bonded over food, fought over the menu for the day. With all four of us being home, there were too many opinions on what to eat. We realized after 18 months that data and weigh scales don't lie. Food is directly proportional to the waistline, especially when you reach middle age. As they say, necessity is the mother of invention. So DIY projects and home improvements are surging in popularity as people redirect vacation funds to invest in where they live. We install new carpets, grew a vegetable garden in our backyard, learned how to fix shower leaks and repair switches. Mostly out of duress because we couldn't get a handyman or a contractor to come home for the repairs due to social distancing rules and the lack of vaccines in early 2020. Those of you that know Home Depot, one of the home improvement retailers in the US, it raked in $132 billion in revenue from Feb 2020 to Jan 2021, an increase of 20% over the previous fiscal year. As countries continue to face the ongoing impacts of the pandemic, it looks as though the homebody economy is here to stay. We've also seen a 360 evolution of the consumer. For retail banking, asset and wealth management, we have differentiated and actionable customer, business, market, and technology insights from the data we collected during COVID. We looked at the consumer spending data and realized that COVID has reshaped consumer spending patterns. Consumers like us went back to the basics. We became value buyers due to the uncertainty in labor markets and mixed messages on the vaccines in the early part of 2020. Travel and dining became infrequent. Brick and mortar stores had 40% less growth as e-commerce picked up. A survey by McKinsey India found that the Indian consumers had acquired new habits, and these habits may continue even after the crisis is over. To give an example, 82% of Indians are likely to continue with grocery delivery. 75% are likely to continue with restaurant delivery, and 78% will continue to buy online for in-store pickup. Digital finance, or fintech, is expanding. Health concerns in the COVID-19 era have made physical cash payments less practical, thereby increasing digital payments and e-wallets. COVID-19 has hurried the decline of cash usage due to concerns of human-to-human transmission of the virus. According to a MasterCard survey, 82% of respondents worldwide viewed cashless and contactless as a cleaner way to pay. And 74% said they will continue to use contactless payment post-pandemic. Most fintech firms have changed their business model now by reducing fees, changing qualification criteria, easing payment requirements, and introducing enhanced fraud protection. The other area that saw an increase was self-service functions on websites. Millennials and Gen Z love self-service. With the pandemic pushing more consumers into the remote customer support arena, self-service has emerged as a clear must-have for all brands. More FAQs on sites or in the form of chatbots has been in use for most digital consumer experience strategies. I see a surge in the demand for information architects, UX designers, and UX researchers. The need of the hour is for scrubbing front ends, combing through the data to uncover the most asked questions, and figuring out how to answer them in ways that will make sense to the largest cross-section of people using these websites. The second tech-enabled increase is the surge in cloud technologies to elevate operations and workforces and to drive better experiences and maximize the ROI. The cloud makes for a more elastic and scalable platform that can be accessed from anywhere. Perfect for work from home, school, and school from home models. In the customer context, it can power a frictionless multi-channel experience by phone, by text, email, social media, and chat. Let's take a minute and talk about real estate. Commercial real estate in the US used to place a premium on the highest floors of office buildings. Concerns about confined and high density workplaces has impacted valuation. The data we gathered showed the need to rethink workspace dynamics and hybrid work models. The new mantra is flexible office space. WeWork and its competitors like Nortel and Industrials, all of which lease ready-to-use office spaces to individuals and companies, have slowed the rapid growth, but haven't had to downsize much. We also see disruptive growth in restaurant delivery, grocery delivery, and quick serve restaurant drive-thrus and curbside pickups. The traditional Indian concepts passed down by our mothers, like touching the fruits and vegetables before we buy, or haggling with the vendor, is a dying trend. I'm sure a lot of homemakers are missing the touch and the smell aspect of grocery shopping. I know I do, especially when online shopping for mangoes at Costco. Instacart has had historic growth, due to the online shopping, grocery shopping. Despite expanding the agents and shoppers by thousands, it made a net profit of about 10 million in April 2020, a month after the pandemic started. Instacart customers bought close to 700 million USD worth of goods in the first 2 weeks of April 2020, helping reverse the company's loss of 300 million in 2019. The influx of business has required Instacart to invest in technical innovations across engineering, product, and design, and also build data science teams. They had 3 years of projected growth occurring within a period of 20 days, from March 10th to March 31st. Talk about business model disruption. So a lot of behind the scenes infrastructure and predictive AI model improvements had to be made. The pandemic accelerated the rollout of features like leave at my door delivery and mobile checkout, which let shoppers pay touchless and cardless at store registers using Apple Pay or Google Pay. Online streaming services have replaced movie halls, coming back to our very own Bollywood. OTT platforms have definitely helped neutralize the budget debate in the industry. They have also democratized the film industry. Instead of A-listers in the lead, makers are now making movies with newer actors and are more receptive to trying them out on Netflix, Amazon, and other domestic streaming platforms. How many of you saw an online doctor during the pandemic? I know I did. According to a survey done by McKinsey, telehealth utilization has stabilized at levels 38 times higher than before the pandemic. These services can be a safer option for healthcare providers and patients by reducing potential infectious exposures. They can also reduce the strain on healthcare systems by minimizing the surge of patient demand on facilities. Next slide, please. The World Economic Forum recently called for a great reset of capitalism. Capitalism has profit at its heart by definition, but profits can still be achieved while tackling social good, fairness, equality, and sustainability for fairer outcomes. The obvious place to start looking is within the existing environmental, social, and governance policies referred to as ESG. It makes business sense to pay attention to this area first. What is ESG? ESG is the empirical, data-driven measurement of an organization's fulfillment of corporate and social responsibility goals. The solution to this challenge starts with data. It's only through data analytics and AI that the ability to process vast amounts of unstructured ESG data that organizations and investors can prove that ESG means something and can make a positive difference in this world. This is possible now. However, many organizations lack the tools to perform data analytics and AI at scale. Companies with high ESG rankings have outperformed their rivals during the crisis. Consider this data. In 2006, when the United Nations launched an initiative aimed at promoting responsible investing, only 64 companies committed to factor in environmental, social, and governance issues when they made their investment decisions. That covered only 6.5 billion USD assets under management. It was a good start for the nascent ESG movement, but few would have predicted that a little more than a dozen years later, the principles of responsible investment could count more than 3,000 organizations and 80 trillion US dollars committed to ESG investing. ESG moved into the mainstream with Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, one of the largest asset management companies in the world. He challenged his fellow CEOs in Jan 2020 to make a key measure of corporate performance. And as many early adopters of ESG have already discovered, the two aims are not in competition. On the contrary, ESG is a solid path to achieving resilience and sustaining profitability in a rapidly evolving economic, political, and environmental landscape. In a global survey done by McKinsey and Company during COVID, it was observed that consumers prefer companies, products, and banks that align with their environmental and social values. This creates an additional competitive lens that companies can focus on to win greater affinity from both consumers and investors. Let's take a step back and talk about how to prevent and build back from natural disasters. Building back better after a natural disaster related to global warming and climate change is a true sign of a resilient and sustainable economy. This is a philosophy that is ingrained in the Japanese culture, based on the historical experiences with recovering from disasters, both natural and man-made, and is quickly being adopted in other countries. High quality data is the foundation for understanding natural hazards and building reliable AI-based algorithms to predict and prevent them. Let me give you a few examples. In Switzerland, the WSL Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research uses seismic sensors in combination with a supervised machine learning algorithm to detect the tremors that precede avalanches. Real-time data from weather stations throughout the Swiss Alps can be turned into a simulation model to monitor danger levels and predict avalanches. Coming back home, in 1999, a cyclone in my home state of Odisha killed over 10,000 people, and the government had to learn quickly to rebuild, restore, and prevent future disasters. The Odisha State Disaster Management Authority, OSDMA, was created, whose primary purpose was to carry out responses to natural or man-made disasters and for capacity building in disaster resiliency and crisis response. 1,500 kilometers of new evacuation roads were built, 30 bridges to connect vulnerable communities. Improvements were made on 200 kilometers of existing coastal embankments. Investments were made in robust decision support systems, predictive models, and advanced early warning systems. When Odisha was hit by a cyclone Fani in 2013, 50 people were killed, less than 1% of the 1999 death toll. How did they do it? Lots of data and satellite imaging. The application of technology and accurate Earth observation data was used to make these predictions, build models to simulate natural disasters, quantify losses to life and property, predict erosion patterns, and learn from historical data. Decision support systems are designed to use data and images from various platforms like cyclone information, remote sensing data, tsunami information, heat wave data, forest fire data, along with cyclone tracking and flood information. Next slide, please. The economy of well-being is an economy that takes a people-centered approach to policy and a multidimensional approach to well-being. It is built around the idea that individual well-being and long-term economic growth are mutually inclusive. Data shows that investing in people and places left behind pays rich dividends in the long run. Researchers at the Brookings Institution are using data-driven network analytics to identify local industries that are most likely to grow or decline, which then helps create strategies for attracting the right industries to foster growth and good jobs for lower and middle income groups. MasterCard Center has something called an inclusive growth score, which pulls data from US Census and other open data sources like figures on healthcare coverage or early education enrollment, and joins that with MasterCard's aggregated and anonymized transaction data to create a snapshot of how communities are faring. By showing where inequalities are most important, This score helps show where investment are most needed. The JP Morgan Institute also creates data-driven policies to support an inclusive economic recovery and equitable long-term growth. Policies and programs that boost cash liquidity and support small businesses in developing and maintaining a cash buffer will allow businesses to better weather the financial shocks. COVID was a big blow to a lot of small businesses, and this data has helped shape where the Paycheck Protection Program should distribute small business loans or where they should be forgiving default of loans. An inclusive economy provides productivity, growth, and societal well-being. Research suggests that 40% of the GDP growth in the US economy between 1960 and 2010 can be attributed to a greater participation of women and minorities in the labor force. We now have substantiative data that skill building is the primary and the best way to close the digital gaps that began since the pandemic. When COVID hit, 2.3 million women left the US workforce in 2020. In the first 12 months of the pandemic, women accounted for 53% of US labor force exits. In April 2021, the job report revealed a very concerning trend. Of the 328,000 American jobs gained that month, 102% of the net job gains belonged to men. Why do you think that is? Remote schooling and lack of childcare forced mothers to stay home with their children, leaving their jobs behind. Latina women are also twice as likely as the male counterparts to perform housework. I'm sure the same is true for many of us Indian women. We've noticed that women who cut back their paid work hours to accommodate family responsibilities risk losing wages, benefits, and opportunities for advancement, not to mention sleep. Studies have shown that women who take a year off from work after giving birth earn less than women who don't. I have experienced this firsthand. Women get passed on for promotions after returning from maternity leave, pushed into less technical roles because the perception of being unable to support weekend releases or stay technical as a working mother. How do I know this? I've been there and seen it firsthand. But having and building the resiliency to bounce back and the ability to continually upskill technically is key to thriving in this digital workforce. Underpinning all of this foundational commitment is also the commitment to remove food insecurities. An increasing number of countries are facing growing levels of acute food insecurity, reversing years of gain. Even before COVID, reduced incomes and disrupted supply chains had created chronic and acute hunger. The primary risk to food security are at the country level. Higher retail prices, combined with reduced incomes, mean more and more households are having to cut down on the quantity and the quality of their food consumption. Numerous countries are experiencing high food price inflation at the retail level. Coming back to India, a study by RBI found that the average retail price rose 6% for several pulses, 3.5% for most edible oils, 15% for potatoes, and 28% for tomatoes in the 28 days post-lockdown from March 24th to April 21st, 2020, compared to the month preceding the lockdown. Now, rising food prices have a greater impact on people in low and middle income countries, since they spend a large share of their income on food than people in high income countries. Reduced calorie intake and compromised nutrition threatens gains in poverty reduction and health, and could have lasting impacts on the cognitive growth of young children. Let's come back to our workforce. Gartner surveys taken before and during the pandemic and drawing data from more than 20,000 employees revealed that COVID-19 has negatively impacted the workforce health of 55% of the global workforce. 55%, that's more than half the population. Looking at multiple workforce and well-being elements like work-life balance, psychological safety, burnout, collaboration, and responsiveness. But how do we use this data to drive workforce resilience? Actually, one of the biggest drivers of workforce resilience is leaders themselves. All of you in your leadership roles can help enable this. Managers and leaders can make work easier by engaging employees with empathy, both personally and professionally. All of you as leaders must focus on workforce health and not just productivity. That is the only way to achieve and sustain workforce resilience. Many employers report that productivity has been maintained or improved since the onset of COVID-19, but it has come at a price. Substantial declines in key aspects of workforce, physical and mental health. In conclusion, data is a strategic asset and ignoring digital disruption is not an option. We can only innovate in today's market when we unlock the power of data and use it for predictive insights. In this day and age, every company is a data company. We should be able to manage, change, and use data like code or like a service. Make data available in a self-service fashion, become platform agnostic, having the ability to work with any data anywhere. Break down departmental and cross-country data silos. As firms leverage data-intensive technologies like cloud computing, generative design, sensor networks, and deep analytics, the need for data transfer across geographical boundaries has become imminent. To give you an example, Volkswagen, Europe's biggest car manufacturer, uses cloud computing to gather and analyze data from its factories in the United States, Mexico, and Europe to increase efficiency and productivity. And they also share this information across systems and suppliers. Coming back to financial services, restrictions on cross-border data flows will complicate regulatory obligations. For example, service providers need data to comply with anti-money laundering laws, know your customer obligations, risk mitigation, customer protection requirements, and most importantly, to maintain standards on cybersecurity and fraud prevention. I'm sure a lot of you signed up for this MBA because of the COVID lockdown and the flexibility provided by remote work. The time spent in Bangalore traffic and hanging out in the clubs and bars in Bangalore is invested in your learning and education. What a wonderful way to invest your time. I wish you success in your careers and your life. Stay healthy and stay strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitra. That was a really amazing and a knowledgeable session. Just reminded me of the movie Matrix, where Neo starts seeing everything as data, moving data specifically, right? So thank you again. We have a few questions from the audience.
Sure.
The first question is, there is a lot of data in an organization. It resides in user Word document, on the emails, and specifically in Excel. What are your thoughts? How can all the discoverable and shareable data can be made available for better businesses?
So a lot of this is a problem that is also impacting a lot of the asset management world. A lot of the data is in Excel or it's unstructured. So making sure that data is readable in a way that it can be fed into engines is key. So a lot of vendors are coming up with plugins that can read multiple kinds of data, structured and unstructured, emails, Excel, PDFs, and so on and so forth. Or if the people, and going back to where we were in JPMC, where we were always likely to build something, then buy, there are various ways of having a lot of software that could actually take this data and change it from unstructured to structured format, or put it in a central source. Cloud is a very specific example. A lot of services that are available on the cloud that give you these services to transform a lot of this data into a way where you can use it. So, and once you get it into a form where it's usable, that's when the insight generation comes in. And the technology is available. It's very possible right now.
So now when we are building this whole world of data, right? So that comes to a second question, which is very specific to what are the key impacts to the growth of the data, to the data innovation, to the sustainability of this data in an economics? With more regulations coming in, do you think that there could be a pause to the velocity from a data collection and variety from a storage perspective?
Yes, so the regulations are definitely a block. I touched upon that in my speech. If you don't allow cross country and geographical flow of data, it definitely becomes. So those of us who have worked in the financial services know about GDPR and CCPA and all of those other regulations that actually prohibit data. But there is also an aspect to it where you need to anonymize the data. So the concern here is privacy, right? As individuals, we also want our privacy and ensuring that our identities are not compromised, or our credit card information is not compromised. So to being able to do both of that, being able to anonymize and secure the data, but aggregate it in a level where you can still use it for insights, that is key. And a lot of companies are doing that. Most of the machine learning models that we're building doesn't have like specific data. I mean, you have to remove the bias also, right? When you're looking at data, because you cannot be biased per region. So we do that. We anonymize a lot of the data, and we structure it in such a way that it's actually safe to move to the cloud, and it's safe to be used in other platforms without compromising the identity of the consumer or the company.
Right. So another thought, right? So we had something wherein folks said that you are now literally lost without data that works, right? And obviously during the pandemic, you spoke about a lot of things which focused on home buddy economy and how your family also tried to harness what is available on the net and build kind of a home buddy economy. So the question which we have next from the audience is, will the home buddy economy sustain in the future, or is it just a gap or fill gap in the, not a gap actually, a fill gap in the pandemic? And once when mostly if we go back to normal, which we are with the vaccines and everything, that will fizzle out. What are your thoughts on that?
Some of, I mean, great question. Some of it will stay. We are seeing patterns in my family itself. Like we don't go out for groceries anymore. We don't go out to pick food anymore, and our dining in options have actually improved because now there's DoorDash and there's Uber Eats and a lot of other options available. So I think it'll be a bit of both, because as human beings, we also need to meet and socialize. So once the vaccines come and we get that herd immunity, a lot of us are stepping out. So, and travel industry will come back because it has to, right? We've been cooped in. And I'm sure all of you have put your vacation plans on hold for a year and a half and almost 2 years, right? So bonding with friends and family, and my India tips are pending, and my family will vouch for that. They haven't seen me since I think 2019 when I last visited. So it will change. It'll probably be a bit of both. I'm thinking maybe it's 60-40 or 70-30, and the 70% will still be homebody and 30% will be like a hybrid thing. And that's going to stay, because once you have realized that you can do your work and maintain your life effectively by being home, a lot of things kind of fall into place, right? Priorities change. We started spending more time with families. And I have seen a lot of improvement with my 13-year-old. Like he used to always complain that I was never home. So now then he's complaining now that I'm always home, and I probably micromanaging him a little bit. So that is also something that I have to be very, very aware of. So it's maybe a bit of both. I will be traveling. I will be going to work. He will be going back to school. He already has. So that's going to change. And that will also create some kind of balance in society. And that's going to happen.
So thank you. So there's some fireworks happening as we are talking about data and analytics, because that's a hot topic across. But another question which has come in, and I'm going to slightly put the question more from a work perspective, right? There are a lot of fresh college graduates who are coming into work, right? And the connect between the senior employers and managers is completely missing, right? So how have the various firms been trying to harness that data and ensure that the culture between the freshers who are coming in and the senior management stays intact and the culture of the firm stays?
It's a great question, and it's a very hard thing to solve when all of us are remote. So what we've tried to do, like back in JPMC when we had new entrants, and here, well, through the pandemic, we've hired, is keep that one-on-one conversation alive. Set up the one-on-ones, talk to them about what they need. The initial data has shown that the first 3 months, the first 3 to 6 months is very critical for you to connect to these new people. Share with them what the culture of the firm is. Share with them what your values are as a leader, right? And keep that going. It is difficult. And now with hybrid work coming in, it is still going to remain a challenge. I believe in most companies, it's 1 day a week where the whole team is in. So try to structure your teams and your brainstorming sessions in such a way where you include these new people in, because they need to get a feel of what work was like in this company or in any other company before the pandemic, right? What the culture is about, what the feeling of team is about. And that is true, especially for people that are coming fresh from college, where they have never seen a team that has worked in an office together, right? It's very critical for us to start connecting. See, that is like, as a leader, I think having that one-on-one channel, finding the time, sometimes it's very difficult to find the time, but find the time and connect to these people, because that's the only way you can retain talent also. A lot of people have changed job because they felt the connection being lost, right? And they wanted that connection, because as human beings, we need that.
Absolutely. So with that, the last question, we have a lot of students, budding entrepreneurs, senior executive as part of this session. Do you have any specific thoughts on the most spoken statement on the street? Data is the new currency.
It is. I think it's a new currency, totally the new currency. And also every company is a data company, like I said, because but just having the data and not doing anything with it is a big loss, right? To be able to collect the data, analyze it, and use it to your advantage, use it for social good, that is the key. Currency could just make us a capitalistic economy, right? So let's go beyond the currency and use that currency, put that currency to good use. I think that's where it is. Like, make your workforce more diverse, start mentoring the next generation, right? Let people know what leadership is all about, what having a sustainable culture in a company is all about. I think that's key.
Awesome. So with that, Mamta, it's over to you. Thank you, Chitra, once again. It was really honored to have you here and listen to your great thoughts on data and analytics.
Thank you,
Abhishek.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Hota.
Thank you, Mamta. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you, Ms. Chitra. We got insights on the role of data in digital innovation, how sustainable economics is a key element in building back. We got to know about the changing consumer preferences and the role of leaders in building a resilient workforce. Thank you once again. We also thank our media partner, ET Insights, our event sponsor, Amazon Pay, and associate sponsor, eSamudai. Ladies and gentlemen, next up, we have a panel discussion with 3 technology leaders coming together in an engaging discussion on digital transformation with Professor Srinivasan, IMB faculty from Strategy area. Please stay tuned.
Hi, I don't know, is anyone speaking or supposed to be speaking?
Hi, Nidhi, I can hear
Hi,
you.
hi, okay. This nighttime lighting is very hard to get right.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Hemant here.
Hi.
Hi, Hemant.
Yeah, it looks like you're on your own face.
Actually, I can't see anyone.
You can't see anyone?
No,
I can see all of you.
I can only see the slide. Now I can see everyone.
Hemant, this is Gopal here. You can keep your background light behind off. There's a glare coming. If it is okay, just try that. Because
Okay,
it was now. Yeah. I think Nidhi, Saraswati, you are all coming fine.
Okay.
Ma'am, you don't have
It's
to worry.
fine?
Fine. Yeah. Hemant, it looks much better. Yeah, thanks.
It's fine, right? Because I can bring the focus light if it's not okay.
Both of you are looking fine. I think all of you are looking fine. Abhishek, am I right? Just you can moderate. Thank you.
Sorry, Professor, I missed the question.
No, I said kindly check. I am seeing them very fine as it is coming. So.
No, it's absolutely.
Nidhi was
fine.
saying, Nidhi, background, you don't have to worry. I think you are coming very fine for this.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. This is awesome. Waiting for Mr. Pankaj Rai. So, and then we'll start.
I think so, Saraswati, your background is the best in terms of.
Yeah, very zen.
Yeah, Zen. I have to derive that from somewhere.
And for a Saturday evening, it seems to be the most apt.
I think Abhishek, you can introduce Professor Srini in case they have not many of them.
Oh, we had a call in the morning. We did meet you.
Oh, good evening, Professor.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
So how is it going, Gopal? All good? Otherwise, all events?
Yeah, I think we started well. In fact, Professor Rishi did it very well.
Wonderful.
Sorry, I'm casually dressed, so I took off my clothes.
No worries.
So, Srini, it went up. Professor Rishi really set up well, and Vishal was awesome.
Very good.
Created a very nice picture, and I think your session is going to be adding a lot of. I think he set a macro context globally, and this even Chitra just before this was also very fine.
Great.
He said nice.
Are we all audible, visible? Let me switch on some more light.
Hey, Pankaj, good evening.
Good evening, good evening. मैं चश्मे के साथ ज्यादा हैंडसम लगता हूँ या चश्मे के बिना?
You are streaming live on the video, so either ways, I don't think so. People would. we would love to have you on a kind of a physical presence in the campus. So
मैं चश्मे पे भी डाइवर्सिटी कर ली जाए, 2-3 लोगों के पास है, 2-3 लोगों के पास ना हो।
बाप रे।
कुछ लोगों के पास ऑप्शंस है, कुछ लोगों के पास ऑप्शन नहीं है।
I might just shut down the whole webinar if I go without my specs.
I've been wearing this since class 5.
Okay. Oh, okay. You are in love with it then.
I'm in love with many such things, it seems. The wrong things.
I think 4 more minutes and we'll start.
Okay. Savitri, is that a painting or someone has painted on your wall, Buddha?
No, Pankaj. That's just a sticker.
Oh, acha.
But it's looking very nice, huh?
Very nice, very nice. I need to have something better than a fridge in my background. Is it near the kitchen? I like this place. You can eat
You
easily.
can afford that because you run so much.
Is your light on, Pankaj? The circular?
It is, but looks like it's not shining as bright as it should. I recently bought one Amazon light. It just puts, because the lighting in the house is not very good. So.
It's amazing how data has also penetrated into the tube lights and the bulb. So amazing.
Yeah.
Clap and lights on. Claps, light off.
Me and my wife keep having this constant argument between yellow lights and the white lights, and I hate the white lights.
Yeah.
The other day I came back from work, and suddenly in my bedroom, she ensured that the yellow lights are still on. Then I suddenly saw the 4 most prominent yellow lights being replaced by the white lights.
White light. Yeah, when we were younger, I think it was yellow lights, and then these tube lights, the white lights came later, at least in my life. I grew up with a yellow light.
True.
So we are visible to all?
Yes, you are. You're visible to all, and it's streaming live on YouTube.
Okay. So we should be cautious of what we say.
Streaming live, Abhishek?
Yes.
बोलिए क्या बोलना चाहते हैं हेमंत जी?
Already talked about wife, so now he's regret.
I think his wife is listening to us. Now it is recorded. I think he's been called upon the High Command.
It also gives the thing, it gives that this conversation is also saying that, okay, whatever, let not the Zoom fatigue kick in, right? So even though it's virtual, I think so it's very important to have this. So
yeah.
Good evening all. I'm Anisha Jain from PGPM batch, and I welcome you for the first panel discussion on digital transformation. With the advent of pandemic, digital transformation is being seen not only in corporates internally, but also externally to meet the ever-changing needs of consumers post the work from home world. It is the need of the hour for all facets of business, whether it be educational giants or the corporate world. We welcome our speakers, Mr. Hemant Jain, Mr. Pankaj Raj, Ms. Pratap Neni, and Ms. Saraswati R. We express gratitude that you have taken out time and joined this panel discussion. Let me introduce the speakers. The first speaker that we have is Mr. Hemant Jain. Mr. Hemant Jain is the Senior Executive Vice President and Business Head at Lokmat Media, and he has over 22 years of hands-on experience in building businesses with responsibilities in digital media, mobile entertainment, online publishing, and consumer broadband space. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in. The second speaker is Pankaj Rai. Pankaj Rai is the Group Chief Data Analytics Officer at Aditya Birla Group and has over 25 years of experience in analytics, strategic planning, risk management, operations, and technology. In this role, he leads the group's strategy on analytics and data science, enabling its varied businesses ranging from cement to financial services to enhance the decision-making capabilities. Welcome to you as well, sir. The third speaker with us is Ms. Nidhi Pratap Neni. She is the Senior Vice President at Wells Fargo, India and Philippines. She has over 20 years of experience and currently is the Head of Public Affairs. It spans digital marketing, corporate communications, social impact, and sustainability. In addition, she also leads the product analytics and modeling organization and is also the site leader for the Wells Fargo Bangalore. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining in. Our final speaker is Ms. Saraswati R. She is the SVP, Head of Product, Analytics and Modeling, Wells Fargo. She's a senior leader with 22 years experience in managing software delivery projects in various domains. She has an expertise in program managing various teams with experience in different processes across globe and process strong people management and strategic leadership. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining in. With this, let me hand it over to the moderator for today, Professor R. Srinivasan. Srinivasan, sir, is a strategy professor, and he has also co-authored the book, various books. His most recent book is on platform strategy business model. Handing it over to you, Professor Srinivasan.
Good evening. Welcome to the event. Welcome to my co-panelists. And it's a pleasure to have a panel as diverse as this. And for a topic like this, and it is interesting that we're talking about digital transformation on a digital medium. And we've been talking about how digital is impacting a lot of our lives, and digital is changing the way even this event is happening. This event would have happened in person had not been a variety of other forces. But the first point that we want to talk about is that digital means different things to different people. For a lot of people, when Indian Railways shifted away from paper written tickets to printed tickets, from standing in the counter to book tickets to being able to book tickets on internet, through the internet or through mobile phones, was digital. For a lot of people, checking your bank account was a chore. To be able to go and find my bank account details. I don't even need to pull data, but now it's been pushed to me through SMSs, through OTPs, was digital for a few of us. To be able to find information was encyclopedias. To be able to find encyclopedias became Wikipedias. Search became Google. People don't even use the word search. They use Google as a verb. To be able to believe that every news and every information is available there. I don't have to go find out about something or somebody. I can actually go to the web and figure out who is who, what is what. And I can, from details about a drug to Hemant's career history, web will tell me everything. Now that's the kind of information that we have, and that's digital to somebody. To be able to figure out who is winning the IPL game, to be able to figure out what is our Prime Minister speaking in the UN General Assembly is digital to somebody. For a lot of us, information is free, but for people who are aggregating information and giving it away for free, it costs money. It still does cost money to be able to collect all of this. And therefore, there are absolutely different kinds of ways people have leveraged digital. Firms have looked at digital differently. And my favorite example is about some firms start inside out. They digitize their internal processes first, having digitized, prepared themselves, prepare the soil, and then get the other stakeholders in digital purchase orders, digital invoicing, digital accounting, digital banking, and digital customer experience. Some firms do outside in. They start with the customer experience, digitize the customer experience, and the customer drives internal processes and pushes us to go digital internally. And we have a bunch of panelists from conglomerates to media to banking to global banking. We have this range of panelists who are going to talk about their experience of digital and their perspectives of digital. Not only do they represent current organizations, I'm sure all of them carry their experience of working in multiple organizations even before their current roles. So I'm going to ask each of these panelists to talk about their digital experience and their specific firms' digital trajectories. And about 5-7 minutes, they will talk about in sequence. We will then open out for question answers. Shall we start with Hemant? We're talking about a media organization, and we always believe that information is free. And at least the current generation always believes information is free, but information costs money to collect.
Correct.
Right? So what is digital to you and your industry?
So firstly, thank you for having me amidst all of you on this panel to share my thoughts on digital transformation inside out or outside in. I've been in love and in a serious relationship with digital since 1996, when I was a part of the team which set up India's first newspaper online, which was indianexpress.com. And it's been 25 years in digital, and I must confess that my love with digital is still evolving and even getting stronger with every single day passing by. And well, to me, it seems to be an everlasting one. The moment, a word like digital transformation, comes to us, it seems to me a very heavy word. But today, before the session, as I sat down to think about it, what really came to my mind about digital was probably it's a way of living, it's a way of thinking, and it's a change. And when you get to seriously think about it, yes, digital has indeed transformed the way we live, the way we think, and it's truly the change in our lives which is here to stay. If you look at it, digital, to me, has truly inspired all of us to think so differently and create a completely different world of exciting opportunities. We today talking about virtual reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We are talking about self-driven cars and a whole lot of exciting things which we wouldn't have even imagined, I would say, 20 years back. Digital has truly disrupted existing business models, only for us to reimagine new ones. And I definitely do not need to mention names of all the multi-billion-dollar valued digital-first startup companies across the world that really didn't exist. I'm not going to say 50 or 100 years back. These companies didn't exist 15 years back, 20 years back. But today they are the most valued companies because they were able to think outside in, and they use digital technologies to create products or services that genuinely solved a consumer problem. I still remember as a child when we used to travel to Chandigarh to meet my grandparents. I used to go with my father early in the morning, travel all the way to the Bombay VT station at 4 o'clock in the morning, stand in the queue. And I still remember many times having missed that particular date because we were way behind in the queue. And then came IRCTC, or then came, Book My Show, and they completely transformed our lives. And I would say today, digital and digital technologies have truly transformed life of millions of people using the new age technology. And also at an enterprise level, I would want to make a submission that digital transformation is not merely about digitizing your existing processes, but bringing about a shift in the role of your teams to a much higher valued task. I would say while the task would remain the same, how do you move him up the value which he's creating around the same task and creating scalable processes that are centered around delivering better consumer experience and also attaining operating efficiencies at a unit level. We all went through pandemic. The world saw something which none of us were really prepared for. And one big change that has happened during the last 15 to 20, 12 to 15 months, I would say, has been the dawn of digital. What demonetization could not do, COVID-19 did to mobile payments, the OTT platforms, our own news publishing business, edutech, e-retail, food delivery, and many other businesses. I must say the Indian digital ecosystem hit its second inflection point in the last decade during COVID, the first being in 2017, when we saw the data prices drop thanks to the geo effect. The news media industry today is one of the oldest industries. It's probably hundreds of years old and has been largely dominated by print all these years. And you will be surprised to note that 9 out of 10 newspapers in India are Indic language papers, 5 times higher readership than English dailies. And if you look at an absolute number, if there are 100 million readers of newspapers on a daily basis, 76 million of them would be reading Indic language newspaper, while an English readership would only be around 16 million. So India, has over the years, especially in the news media business, seen tremendous shift. There have been key shifts which has set out the ball rolling for them as far as digital transformation is concerned. And some of the key pointers, I would say, around which I have personally, been working in terms of bringing about transformation, change, right from bringing about change in mindsets to bringing about change in the way the news gets gathered, the way it used to get gathered for print, how we are trying to create a converged newsroom and a news gathering system, how the content today gets distributed across a multimedia platform. The format of content has become agnostic. What used to be text moved to video, and we've suddenly seen the emergence of audio back. And currently I'm working on a very exciting project where I'm going to use text using AI and machine learning. I'm going to convert it automatically into audio in, I would say, around 10 seconds time and distribute it to the convenience of the consumer, where he has an option to either read the story or hear the same story at a point of click. Now, if you look at today, close to 625 million internet users with 45% penetration. We saw, I still remember when I was in Hangama in 2008, 2009, I used to cater to the feature phone users in the country. We had a very large number of Nokia users. And suddenly what you see over in a decade, India has become one of the largest smartphone economies. The screen size has increased, the aspiration, the ability of the kind of content which people could access has kind of become more enabled. And in 2017, thanks to Jio, India has moved swiftly to become a very, very large video consuming economy in the world. And local languages is on the, I would say, explosive growth. By the end of this year, you would see close to 535 million local language, Indic language users, which again has thrown open a very large digital transformation opportunity for the news industry. And also we have seen that there are participation by third-party platforms. So Google search, the way it's enabling multiple local languages on search is quite a big enabler. Social media have their own role to play because it kind of gets community to participate in the journey of news creation. A lot of news today is getting, the breakout of news happens on Twitter. And I would say the most important element is around the ability of digital platforms to throw up real-time data, which is what is helping us take decisions with regard to content creation, content distribution, and also monetization. So there is a lot around transformation. So what I would do is I would just take a pause here, and I would welcome my co-panelists to share their stories, and I'll come back to some of the specific examples later.
Thank you, Hemant. That was a good throwback into what we have experienced in the past few years. Maybe I would now invite Pankaj to talk about how he is looking at digital in a conglomerate with multiple industries in place.
Sure. A few thoughts building on what Hemant just spoke about. We keep hearing a lot about digital first, AI first, data first, all of that. So first of all, I always think, business or your differentiation first and everything else as a means to that end. So I kind of keep going back to telling people that, the first we need to figure out what do we need to do, what is our purpose, what's our differentiation, and then we'll figure out what is required to make it happen. So that's just a point I wanted to make, because these days this digital and AI and some of these things are coming so much that I want to make sure that they are secondary to the purpose and objective of our organization. The second is, to me, digital really is a use of data and any of the other newer technologies to help transform your business. And I think these technologies could include automation. It could be mobile, social, any of the new things which your business currently doesn't have. So I think this is in my mind, a catch-all definition to say that all the things that you don't know, since you are old-fashioned, we will use those to kind of help you, improve your business. So to me, digital is a catch-all phrase, which probably only excludes core R&D or manufacturing, and pretty much everything else, gets included here. And that's fine. I guess many of these digital teams do have all those different capabilities to bring to bear and help the businesses transform. Now, if you look at the topic about inside out and outside in, at a very high level, and maybe there are exceptions, what I have seen is that if you are in a consumer-driven business, it's quite likely that you'll be forced to do outside in, because the consumers are very demanding and they are getting things from elsewhere, and you've got to sort of catch up with that. But if you're selling high value B2B products, at that point in time, the consumers may or may not necessarily worry so much about your front end, or your, if you are selling selling to high net worth individuals, or you are selling cement to large distributors, or any B2B selling, there the customer side is not as critical. Again, they are more interested in the product, the value add, So therefore, that is where probably the back end and the efficiency focus tends to happen. So at a very macro level, that's what I have seen. The B2B more, inside out, and B2C probably more outside in. Now, coming back to the businesses that, I have seen in the group that I am in, and by the way, I'm just a month old, so I won't say I'm an expert in this area. But in general, what tends to happen is that, every business starts thinking top down on which is the biggest area of opportunity. So if I look at cement, a biggest cost of cement is logistics and energy. So, naturally you will try to see what can I do in improving the logistics cost, optimization, and, bring your forecasting optimization techniques to, make the routes more optimal. If energy is the biggest cost, can you again use data analysis to figure out how do you consume less energy? Are there opportunities to move from one source of energy to another? The fashion retail business will be driven more by merchandising. How can you launch new products very quickly? How can you target customers? So the focus of digital over there would be on mobile app, more customer facing. Financial services, depending on whether you are in asset management or lending, on the lending side, you'll want to make sure that you find the right customer, the right limit, risk management on some other. So I think digital is a means to an end. And I think depending on what your business is and what stage of maturity that is in, and where do you think your next competitive advantage is, will determine where the focus of your digital team will be. So I think that's what I think is happening, around me across various businesses. We work with the business, we figure out what's your long-term 2 to 3 year strategy, which is the area where you can make a big difference, where you see an opportunity, and then how can we bring all these technologies that can be called as digital to help you transform your business. So I'll pause there.
Wonderful. You possibly spoke like a strategy prof, bringing in all efficiency and transformation and competitive advantage to this. Good to be listening to this. At this point, let me also bring in how do we do all of these efficiencies and advantage. Maybe we will go to a bank, to Nidhi, and find out how we can even use digital to engage with data, engage with customers, and share your experience of what is digital and how do we look at digital in a consumer banking or in a corporate banking context.
Sure. Thank you. And I mean, I've had the privilege of seeing 3 different industries over my career. So having been in retail and then in Dell and now in a bank. So have really seen, the 3 of them have very different approaches towards how they look at data and how they have evaluated, the whole push towards digital and transformation, right? So when you look at retail, and Pankaj was talking about some of this, it's really a penny margin business. And Safeway, Walmart, all of them, their focus was how do we squeeze more and more of a margin out of our system. And we've heard so many stories about Walmart focusing on their suppliers and how they would have suppliers bring efficiencies into their system so that they could make more of a profit through their contracts and their negotiations with them. So there, that was one big trigger. When I moved to Dell, and we all know the origins of Dell, which is offer the customer as much customization as he or she would like to make. And so that was more an outside-in approach to say that, here's the kind of system I need to have, and build it the way they want it. So that was coming directly from my needs and a very spec-driven product creation over there. And then when you move to banks, again, so much of difference between the legacy banks that we see, where data has always been an asset. We've always been in the business of quantifying because there's been money, and we use that money to make more money. So data and the beginnings of analytics happened first in the financial services sector. And so there it was more an inside approach towards figuring out how do we use technology, how do we start modeling things. But it was very insular, perhaps, because in the end, the whole community banking aspect was it was a matter of relationships. It was building that trust and having the customer be able to see you so that, they felt that you were somebody that, that they could trust with your finances. And so, the reticence to have that layer change, I think was key to the fact that, it has to be that human touch and has to be that trust. So that's how, we've seen banks transition. But I think over the last 20 to 30 years, there's just been so much change, where when we talk about digital, I think digital is just the confluence of so many things. It's the availability of cloud, of humongous storage systems. It's the ability to retrieve and transact and process, huge amounts of data, and all of that coming together, while at the same time the customer option set has changed. So there is now the need to say that, okay, how much do we know about our customers? What are they thinking, and how are they comparing us with our peers, and the options that they have available to us? And so gradually, banks, as with any other retailer, we're moving towards this thing of customer 360. Are we able to see whether our customer who has a deposit with us also has a home loan with us, also is investing through us? And if they have a small business, are they also coming to us for their small business needs? So all of this is now, has been front and center over the last decade or so for us to sort of keep pace with all the other activities going on in the financial services field. But I think what we also don't realize, and I'm talking about something slightly different, is, we're all pretty much the same age group over here. But when we look at our children, for them, digital is a way of life, right? For us, we would go to movies. We needed to have a car to get around. We felt that cooking at home was a core part of family values, whereas now we can take Uber and Ola, and our kids will probably not feel the need to own cars. They have entertainment streaming to them right in their living rooms. Food comes in, gets delivered, healthy options, unhealthy options. So, the big pillars that we thought our life were the foundation of our life are not going to be the foundation of life going forward. And that's a big change. And people, the organizations that have been able to create and craft this transformation are actually the ones that I would really credit with being visionaries. Was it something that they thought about the customer that made them change it? I don't know, but it was really, we talk about Steve Jobs, Uber, Netflix, all of these have been so transformative.
Nice that you talk about generational shifts apart from all this data, this fun. And beyond the generational shifts, it's also about how these companies are also catering to people like us and you and me, the previous generation. It's not that they've just moved on from this one. We'll talk about these generations and other things. So let's move to Saraswati. Saraswati also represents a bank, and let's hear her trajectories.
Thank you, Professor. Yeah, I will stick to my discussions around financial services and banking. Traditionally, if we look at how financial services have been, they've been one of the most conservative, stable industries in the world. For a very, very long time, businesses were carried out mostly in the same way, right? There was no big disruption. With that said, they were most innovative as well. And I'll talk about why I'm saying that, right? But this has changed. This has changed. And I don't think anybody can argue about that fact now, right? There are large internet giants like Apple, Google, Amazon base, which are disrupting the bank and the financial services today. Now, it's a different question whether these fintech companies will compete with the banks or they'll partner with the banks, right? Because the business model of whether it is to acquire customer or acquire data is a very, very big question at this point of time, right? And who's going to win? How are the banks getting disrupted? Are they doing it for profits? These are questions that are getting solved as we speak. And we are seeing this because we are right in the middle of the transformation. It's probably difficult to see through what the future might look like, but there is transformation happening in the banking industry every single day. Right? And the reason why this is happening, there are basically three, in my mind, there are three things that are shaping it up, right? One is products itself in the industry got digitized. I'm saying digitized, right? And then there were new customer demands that came in based on the experience they have had overall with the other industries as well. And the last thing, because bank is very rigid about regulation, the regulations have changed as well. And that's a very key element for digital transformation in banking, at least. Right? So if we go back to 60s, banks were the earlier ones to adopt to the computing system way back in 60s. By 80s, all of the computing, all of processes were dependent on the systems for all the business processes. And then came the tech development. All the tech development were adapted into banking. .com, Web 2.0, all that came in, banks were quick to absorb that as part of transformation. You see whether you name it, right? Internet of Things, cloud, virtualization, big data analytics, advanced ML techniques, mobile networks, all of these are critical to how we are seeing as a digital transformation in banking. And if we look at how operations have changed in banking, AI chatbots have been introduced, and they were the early adopters of this. Now, these processes change, right? When these processes change, the digital transformation automatically is happening every single day. I grew up, when I was growing up, I remember my father going to bank to deposit money, to put a check, right? And that's my memory of my childhood of banking. And there used to be a piggy man coming and collecting money, right? And when my daughter was small, I started inculcating, you have to have a piggy, right? That's how, like how Nidhi spoke, the value systems were. And it doesn't make sense anymore when I look back, right? Because everything is mobile first for this generation. So to your point saying, what are we going to do as a bank, right? Because traditionally, banking sector has been there for a long time. And there are customers like my father who are not necessarily digital savvy. And there are also customers who are new Gen Z, who are, everything is mobile first. They want instantaneously. So there is this huge thing where you just need to merge. The definition of customer is not one. It's multifaceted, multiple needs. It's not catering to, unlike new banks that are coming in, which are neo-banking, which caters to a certain generation, traditional banks which have been there need to cater to a definition of customer, which is multiple needs, right? So what I have seen is outside in, inside out, both needs to happen for traditional banking, right? So the mobile banking, mobile payments, while that is happening, because these banks have evolved, I'm talking about large banks here, right? Not the neo banks. These banks have evolved over a period of time. There has been legacy systems that have been built. Unless that core banking gets fixed, the whole process flow will not happen. You can build layers of SOAs, have APIs connect to them, but unless you've had that backend which is smooth flowing, like I was saying, it's lipstick on the pig, because it won't work seamlessly. And moment that customer experience doesn't come through, then you lose customer. We are doing a lot of things today, right? Especially in analytics, we are looking at even hyper personalization, saying what is the specific need at a point of time based on the data that we have. But that alone will not do, because it has to be a seamless experience. And then what is the need for somebody who's not digital native as well? So that is the challenge that big banks are facing today, because there is traditionally the number of customers and the definition of customers that we have varies, right? While we are looking at bit-sized, snack-sized consumption of the needs, the marketing that needs to go to the Gen Z, we are also looking at how do we make it convenient while personalizing the content for also not so digital native customers. So that's a good challenge to have. That's a good evolution of digital transformation, unlike the newer banks, right? So to me, when people talk about digital transformation in any industry, it's not, from one state to another state. It's actually a studied state of transformation. We often, hear people say that we need to reinvent. That is true, but it's also a little more complicated in my mind than that. Digital transformation does not, really mean that you have to take your bag, pack everything, and then shift to another house, right? It's not shifting from one state to another steady state. It actually implies that you shift from one state to another state through constant reinvention. So this reinvention, innovating yourself continuously evolves the digital transformation. That's how I read it as digital transformation.
Okay, so 4 interesting perspectives. If I have to quickly summarize the 4 perspectives that we had, we heard Hemant talk about digital is a habit. Digital is about changing habits, it's about impacting habits. We looked at Pankaj talking about digital is about finding opportunities. It's an opportunistic effort. We heard Nidhi talk about digital is an opportunity for us, for businesses, to transform the value that we create and be able to provide new value, different value, as well as being able to leverage relationships across products, across customers, across generations. And we looked at what Saraswati is talking about, digital as a process, not a transplant. It's a gradual, one step at a time process. So let me start with Saraswati. There's a chicken egg problem going on here. Like you talked about, unless I get the back end right, I can't do the front end. But unless there is a front end demand, the back end investments aren't justified. How do we justify this? How do we break this chicken egg between the front end and the back end?
So actually, I mean, break the problem, right? That's how I see it. Break the problem while you look at small nuggets of problems. And I'll take an example and explain that, right? Mm-hmm. While we are still doing the front end mobile banking, parallelly, which is working today with the back end that is existing, parallelly having a technology change which runs parallelly, or taking a functionality of a feature that is introduced into the newer mobile banking or newer mobile app, and taking that onto a newer platform itself, which is based on the latest technology, and then having those parallel systems is how it is getting solved today. Because if we take a monolithic system and then try to break it and then try to replicate it, we are trying to solve a 50-year-old problem in 5 years, which is not going to work. So it's a combination of two, and that is how. So it's actually not one or the other. It's size, bit sizing it and making it more agile at a time.
Okay, and so that leads me to the question that's there on the chat to Nidhi, which is about a lot of stories about the amount of data that we have. Do we actually have meaningful patterns in the data? Are we just making some flimsy things around data? Because there's a question that talks about how do we source this information? How do we differentiate between the wheat from the chaff?
Yeah, I think the question about data and information, right? And I think, data is a factoid. And as we all know, you can use the same fact and tell one story and tell a completely different story with it. So when it becomes information is when you build the right context into it, because a standalone fact or data will not really give you that insight. So I think, what you need to do is to connect several data points, bring in an understanding of the customer, an understanding of the markets. It's just not having access to data it's a big thing, but it's not the only thing that will make you capable and able to compete and lead in the market. So the whole transition to drive actions which are based on that data require a lot of there is still a lot of worth of that human experience and human knowledge of customers and the market that goes into determining what that data is telling you. It could be you can use fancy models, but the understanding of those models, the deficiency of the model, how do you understand the risks associated with taking a decision based on what that model is telling you, and what is the plan A, plan B you need to build if something doesn't shape up the way you expect to, doing a test and control with your hypothesis. All of those things have to follow on from just the fact that you have a data source.
Very interesting that you talk about context. Quite a lot of times when we say you analyze the data, unless you ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers. So building the context is extremely important. And in fact, that's also the reason why we're struggling as a society to differentiate between good news and fake news. And the fake news story is also about building the context, right? Asking the right questions. Hemant, how does the industry, at least the publishing industry, how does it worry about fake news, and what tools do we have to find fake news or to separate fake news from the good news?
So I think so. The whole process of separating the fake news from the good news is the responsibility is completely onto the platforms where there are no moderation, where there is no creation of original content, and I'm referring to third-party platforms, which I call as open source content platforms, where you and I can put out any piece of content, and where the social media platforms thrive to get user engagement. So one of the very interesting aspects, which we observed in the news media business during COVID, especially, is there was a very clear demarcation or differentiation between men and the boys. And what came back to be observed are, I would call them as traditional media houses, which have been in existence for the last 50, 100 years, and who have truly, invested in creating the right kind of content with the spirit of certain values around journalism. Though those values and philosophies could vary from one media house to the other. People, want to go back to consuming content which they believe is genuine and which has an element of research built into it. While there is always speculation of which media houses align to which political parties, etc. But I can tell you with complete confidence and conviction that when you believe in the spirit of journalism, you tend to create content, and news media brands only get built out basis your credibility. Now, what we have all witnessed is because of digital and empowerment of digital through tools and applications and easy processes, we saw emergence of digital first news organizations who did not have any pedigree, and they started. It could be, a bunch of 25-year-old, 23-year-olds saying, I also want to do news. And it's very easy. You just have to hire a couple of guys and you keep looking at multiple original sources of content creators and you copy those news pieces by changing a para here and there. But what I want to bring forth a very important point is that it's not so easy. News gathering today, I would say over the last 5 years at Lokmat. So I must share with all of you today on this panel, when I joined Lokmat in 2016, we had a website, lokmat.com, in Marathi language news site with a third-party platform. With unique users of around 6 lakhs, serving close to 1 million articles a month, consuming 1 million articles a month. We took a year to build our own tech stack using Drupal. We have one of the state-of-the-art content management and delivery systems. Today, we cater to, on a single platform, 3 languages, 35 million unique users a month, and over 350 million page views. And it's all happening through a single system. And if you see the growth which has happened, what used to be like a 50% split between desktop and mobile, today 97% of users are mobile first. Now, for a news media organization, news gathering, I believe, is the lowest hanging unit where digital has really enabled and changed. For example, a guy who gathers news for newspaper, reports to office at 4 o'clock. The guy who's a part of my team in online editorial reports at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we cater to 35 district places in Maharashtra. We are the only news media brand which caters to hyperlocal news from 35 district places. And we didn't see a point of publishing yesterday's news today morning, because that's quite outdated. So what we did, we embarked on a very, very large convergence project. It's been 5 years now. Out of the 4,000 news gatherers on ground we have, close to around 70% of them today are trained on mobile journalism. We have what you call as a multi-screen content management system. You can easily click pictures, record audio stories, and the whole news gathering has been completely democratized. What I really enjoyed in this journey are people who are 50, 55 year plus and who had never used digital or technology. For them, I would say they were the first adopters in this whole process. And it's a joy, right? From a cameraman who used to click pictures is now doing video shoots to stuff like that. So what I fundamentally believe that this whole journey of news gathering has seen a huge transformation. And secondly, just to pick up the point from Saraswati, today we are living in a very, very segmented world. My 18 to 25 customer is an Instagram customer. If I'm imagining him to come to my website, I'm a fool. I need to create content on Instagram for him, relevant to him, to build him as part of my community base. And so segmentation is the key. What works on Facebook does not work on Google search. And what works on Google search does not work on other third media platforms like ShareChat. And my concluding point would be, in terms of even the formats of content, I'm saying there's a huge, huge opportunity using technology. So the same video, if somebody wants to consume less bandwidth, should be available as audio using technology rather than any kind of manual intervention. So I think the key today is how do you seamlessly use content, technology, and distribution to kind of create community who gets engaged with your brand and use data very effectively. We've currently engaged with a London-based company to kind of collect user data and feed it back into our system, whether it is in terms of content generation or monetization. So I must say it's a very, very interesting journey for all of us at the news media industry.
It's a beautiful cycle you described, Hemant. By having these 25, 30-year-olds journalists, your journalists are not definitely 50-year-olds now on the street.
Correct.
We were able to collect information at speed, micro-segmentation, mass customization, which drives community engagement. And that community engagement continues to drive speed. So this is the cycle that we're talking about, from speed to segmentation to mass customization to engagement. If you can get the cycle going, we can never go wrong.
Correct.
That's a beautiful story. Does this, so bring it back to Pankaj now. What is the role of this differentiation? You talked about B2B versus B2C. Is digital still relevant? Can we use digital to differentiate, or is digital just hygiene today?
I think, we spoke about, what are the issues and challenges. I think the biggest issue that I see is on the problem definition side, on what are we trying to solve for, versus on the solutioning side, which I think is becoming more and more commoditized. And I think the challenge is that a lot of, I saw some question about, data and information and all that. I think half the time the issue is, what are we trying to solve for? Many a time people start with the data, say, okay, I have this data, now I want to do something. I think that's putting the cart before the horse. And I think maybe that's where some of our education system also comes in, because we have lionized problem solving. We have never lionized problem definition. And that's where I think the competitive differentiation is coming in. I think Hemant is winning not on the technology that he used, but figuring out how to reach out to this customer and doing what. And then the technology came in to help that happen. So I think that's where I think the bigger issue is. I think many people, tend to acquire the technical knowledge and all of those things, which is not bad. I would say necessary, but not a sufficient condition for success. I think the sufficient condition is starting from where do you want to play? What do you want to do? So I think today it's very important, more important than ever before, to know the context, know that subject matter, know the industry, and also see where the disruption is coming from. I think, asked the question to Saraswati about banking. It's like the ambassador cars are trying to compete with Tesla. How do you change pretty much everything? Because Tesla was designed in a very digital first manner. And how does an old bank get away from the IBM system when the code was written in COBOL 50 years ago and maybe the guy died and no one knows how to touch that code and things like that. So I think a lot of legacy industries, which are very old, suffer from that, and it's actually very hard for them to do much. So they have to put the lipstick on the pig, because people don't know who gave birth to the pig and what's the anatomy of the pig and what to do with it. So they just leave it alone till it's broken. So I think that these are some of the things which are there a lot in the legacy industry, which the new ones don't suffer from. I think there are a few questions about should the big companies worry about new companies and so forth. I think it depends on what the moat of the big company is. If you, let's say you have a great brand, that brand will last for a while. So I think you have the moat for a while. Can you do something about it? You may have branches, you may have customer, engagements that will last for a while. So I think the disruption is happening, but depending on how long your moat will last is the time that you have to reinvent yourself and change your, strategy. And that's how I think different companies are playing.
So would you celebrate consumers buying Ultratech cement on Amazon? Or would you be worried that customers are buying cement on Amazon?
In fact, we as a organization, and I think probably most organizations are trying to do that everyone is trying to go direct to the customer. So everyone who thought that they were in the enterprise business is now thinking to go beyond the middleman and go to the customer directly, which is not easy. I think all those middlemen existed for a reason. If you look at the FMCG industry, there are typically 3 stages of middlemen. There's a distributor, stockist, retailer, all of that. I think if you look at the retail side, Amazon and all, they are trying to say you probably need just one middleman, that dark warehouse where you can put it. So I think we might eventually go from a 3-layer structure to a 1-layer structure with all these digital technologies, route optimization, all of that. But there still will be some, middleman in between. It's very hard for you to, create something in a factory and go directly to your customer. So I think as the markets evolve in different geographies and depending on how the concentration is, some of these things are happening. So I think every company, including ours, is trying to put that digital front end. But I think there are many other things in between. You can't bypass all of that. You still need, many of these people in between to help you till you circumvent some of those issues which exist today.
That's a very interesting thing, because news as information can be mass customized and delivered instantaneously. Cement takes time to produce and time to transport. So even if I order cement online, it will take time for me to get that cement into my, and there's an inventory that's required.
Yeah, I think this news industry, and Hemant knows more. I think this is also creating a lot of garbage around you because people don't want to pay for it.
Exactly.
And I think while there is a lot of news out there, but is that information? I suspect that. So I frankly don't read most of the free media at all.
Exactly. And in fact, there are a lot of things that's also happening in the financial services industry as well, which is about a lot of advice is free.
Yeah.
Right. So people actually want free advice. People don't want to pay for advice today.
That's when you are the product, as they say.
Exactly. So how does services businesses take care of things? How are we continuing to get consumers to pay for banking and financial services?
No, everywhere, wherever it is free, your data is the price that you pay. And then it depends on how much you value your data and how the time you don't give it away with your full knowledge. But over time, I think it will be given away with knowledge, and that's fine. I think some youngster is happy to give away their personal data for a discount or whatever, and someone like me has no reason to give any data away for anything and things like that. So I think everything in between will happen. But yeah, you can go to Nidhi, and she's the banking person there.
So Nidhi, we used to talk about when we used to engage with public sector banks. And a lot of things that they used to always talk about is they worry about this Facebook, Apple, not so much about consumer behavior, but about Amazon Bank or a Google Bank. How will Amazon Bank or Google Bank disrupt banking industry? How are you looking at all of these becoming from payment solutions to banks for me?
No, I think, as with any other company or a bank, we are taking a lot of this seriously. There are big tech players getting into finance. There are small fintech players. I think these days, for anyone to succeed, you have to be a technology company. And at your core, you have to be strong in understanding what technology can do for you and in building the right tech stack that supports you in, once you define what your business should be all about. So yeah, there are challenges, but then, having built that foundation over so many years and having had those customers, it's not, it's okay. How do we continue to stay relevant with everything that's happening around us? How do we scan the market and bring in what we see that is relevant? So, there are so many fintechs, and often the question that's asked is, do you think they're a threat? But, often, acquiring them or partnering with them is the way to go to build those capabilities and bring them in internally. So when, there's a question on M&A that somebody has asked, And although that question is talking more about whether we use Excel and Python for M&A, so obviously the geeks over there will use that. Can still be Excel, where you look at the balance sheets and the assets and all of that. But the core part of M&A evaluation earlier used to be, the culture of the companies coming together or being acquired. But now it's also about the tech stacks that they are built on and how complementary they are, and what are the strengths that one is going to bring to the other, either in the back end or in the ability to personalize, or the customer base that they will bring to each other. So there are, you need so many specialists from a variety of areas to feed into that M&A decision, which can still be easily done on Excel today. So we do partner a lot with academic institutions, and those are the hotbeds. So Stanford and an MIT are able to see what is happening, because a lot of the these startups get incubated there. So a lot of the R&D that we do helps to keep us relevant and to plan for what our strategy should be in the medium term. Yeah.
Wonderful. So there are a couple of questions around how do we change habits. So there's a question in the Q&A about human transformation. Well, how do we make habits change? How do we, make people accept digital? That's one. There's a lot of, the second question that's there on the chat is also about, are we losing the human touch in all of this? Are we just automating everything and we're losing the human touch? And then talking about, there is old people who really want to visit the bank, be in touch with the teller, the cashier, the personal conversations. How does that, how do you balance the needs of this one, especially coming from a very legacy, traditional, branch-driven banking?
Yeah, I think, if you can't force people to do something they don't want to do, they will adopt what is convenient to them. Our parents say good morning on WhatsApp every day, but they will not do other things which should be equally as easy that they could do through online and digital channels. So it's your affinity and your desire to take those on and be willing to transact in certain fashion. So and for the provider, it's for us to figure out how we make that convenience apparent to our customers. The human touch going away, yes, that was happening. COVID has accelerated that no end. So in a way, COVID has actually helped the people who were willy-nilly, unwilling, to embrace this. People who did not, have Paytm or their phone banking set up, they had to do it. The one part which I think is still hurting is our handloom sector, because we find that people have not been able to find ways to come through. Organizations very well respected like Fab India, they just didn't have an e-commerce channel. So they have struggled. Smaller NGOs don't know how to get their wares across, and we don't have standardizations, right? So I'm talking from, the women will understand that if there's a sari, is it 100% cotton sari or is it synthetic? You can't figure that out from a photograph. So how do you standardize some of these things that are so common in the Indian economy, that you're able to discern and be able to transact that through digital channels? So that still has a ways to go. Yeah.
I'll just add to what Nidhi said, right? I think from a banking perspective, for at least the older generation, three things are important. I think convenience, what Nidhi said. Simplicity, right? Today, they're able to use WhatsApp and say good morning because it's very simple. They don't worry about what can go wrong in good when typing good morning. That simplicity to bank as easy will make it convenient. While I'm saying bank, it's true for whether it's booking Uber or, doing something else. And most important thing that they worry about is also security. When I'm doing online transaction, what happens to my money, right? That assurance is very important. While the Gen Zs understand that. For older generation, that is a bigger worry. And today, technology or analytics is so much work has happened on fraud, right? How you type in the keyboard, biometrics, right? All that is enabled into your banking. That education awareness also needs to be part of how we transact in the banking. I'm sticking to banking, but that's true for everything.
Everything, yeah.
How fast you're able to type and raising a red flag when it is in a different geolocation. All that is part of the fraud analytics that's happening today, but not necessarily being made aware of for the people who need to know, right? That gap needs to be bridged. And while a lot of branches got closed, again in US and even here, because we thought we will all move to digital and then realize we still need to have branches. Analytics is again playing a huge role in deciding where should the branches be. Who are our customers who prefer to come to which branch, right? So the data is actually enabling us to decide where should the branch be, what kind of facilities need to be in branch. Should we modernize the branch to be a little more digital, or should we make it different? All that decision is actually happening through analytics today.
Wonderful. In fact, one of the questions that I actually had right in the beginning was also about transition to voice. Is there an opportunity? Voice is possibly the next big opportunity. In fact, the media organizations are picking up a lot of things on voice, at least the sourcing of the content. But both diversified conglomerates, there's a lot of opportunities in telecom on voice. Idea does engage a lot with consumers on voice. And there's an opportunity for banking also to talk about voice. A lot of these fears that people have about banking can actually be tackled by voice, can actually be tackled by multilingual transactions. I'm worried about typing wrong things in English. Maybe if I allow me to speak, I don't need to type Marathi or Gujarati. I can speak in Gujarati to the phone, and the phone will do my banking. So is there some direction that we are going towards in banking, in services around voice?
Yeah, there are multiple things happening again. One, there was a lot of skills are built into Alexas, right? Today, every house has Google Home to Alexa. So skills are embedded into Alexa, which are easy to start with. What is my account balance? Starting from there to, if you see where the newer banking is happening, there is also easy payment that is happening through voice. And this is not rolled out yet, right? Or like you said, how do I can work that is happening? While IVR chatbots have been there, just in terms of specific multilingual, I think we have some way to go.
Yeah, I think that the next big opportunity is about both in terms of elderly or multi-generational, as well as being able to cater to people who are differently abled, people who can't, have the visual problems, or even security risk perceptions are different. I think there's a great opportunity for us to go towards multiple ways of inputting content. Right? And this is another great opportunity. Let me, I think we are very close to closure time. I think what we're looking at here is about being able to look at how we can transform ecosystems. It's not just about a firm transforming. We also need to look at the back end, the front end, the employee experience, the consumer experience, the intermediaries experience, as well as use the right kind of technology, use the right kind of context to be able to build patterns. In fact, when I was thinking about voice, we're talking about how using Alexa at home is actually helping overcome that fear of what happens if I say something wrong. What's the worst that can happen? Alexa will possibly give you a wrong answer. Same way, if I'm banking online, what's the worst that can happen if I ask a wrong question or a wrong grammatical question? Maybe, I will not get the right answer. Maybe the bot will come back and say, please say it again. I didn't understand what you're saying. Now, once we get to that, overcoming that fear, we possibly will be far more inclusive. And digital, I look at digital as about being able to improve efficiency, change habits, make the world more equal, inclusive, both a workplace as well as a marketplace. There is something for everyone. There is a restaurant for people who want to go and enjoy the experience. There is Zomato who doesn't want the experience, who wants the convenience of home delivery. There is a Book My Show for me to seamlessly only take the pain point of booking away, but I still want to go physically and sit in a movie and watch. There is Netflix on the phone. There is Netflix on my living room, big screen television. It's about mass customization and pandering, not just catering, pandering to specific preferences of consumers. I think that's where we are looking at the trajectories. And I think we had a wonderful insight into how these industries and how these things are evolving. And I think we have an exciting future ahead as leaders in digital transformation. Thank you very much, Pankaj, Hemant, Nidhi, and Saraswati for spending your evening and enlightening the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much,
Thanks
Professor,
a lot.
and thank you all the panelists.
Thank
Let
you.
me just take this opportunity to talk about the futuristic outlook you had mentioned about. I just wanted to say that I hope there was such invention wherein I could go back and correct my mistake. Saraswati ma'am, I'm really sorry I got your role wrong. So I would like to reintroduce you. Saraswati ma'am is the director of Citibank. Thank you, ma'am. Your insights were really helpful. And to all the panelists, the generational shift, economic shift, the topics on futuristic outlook on all of these from a services, banking, consumer experience, and security point definitely helped enlighten all of us. Thank you, Professor, for steering the conversation to the most engaging topics. As budding leaders and managers in the audience, we all thoroughly enjoyed it. For the audience, let me just remind you, we have an action-packed session for tomorrow. The first thing tomorrow is at 9:30 a.m. and it's a keynote speech by a diversity and inclusive champion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.